What if you find the cutest girl in your class soaked in ditch water? Sandai helped her and his life changed from that day. But wait, this is not your typical high school romance where the MC spends 2, 3, sometimes even 4 whole seasons just trying to confess. But here, the main boy and girl don't waste time. They confess early, and they even get kissed way sooner than you'd expect. And after getting into a relationship, he glows up, becoming more confident, more social, and honestly, way more attractive. So, the story starts with a pretty unfortunate situation. A girl named Shinohara Uzuki is stuck in a gutter, covered in grime, and already having the worst day imaginable. While she's trying to deal with that disaster, she notices a boy standing there staring at her and immediately tells him to stop looking. The problem is, it's kind of impossible not to look. The boy points out that her foot is literally trapped in the drain, and Shino fires back that she obviously didn't jump in there on purpose. At this point, she's more concerned about the fact that she smells like a sewer because she has work later that day. When the boy asks about her shifts, Shino explains that she starts at 5 o'clock, but her house is about an hour away. Even if she leaves right now, there's no way she'll make it home, clean up, and get back in time. After thinking for a moment, the boy offers a solution. Since his apartment is nearby, she can come over and use his shower. To his surprise, Shino accepts almost instantly. The two head toward his apartment, and the boy can't help feeling like this whole situation is unreal. After all, Shino isn't just some random classmate. She's one of the most popular girls at school, the kind of person everyone knows. She even sits behind him in class. The problem is, they've basically never spoken before. Meanwhile, he's the complete opposite, a loner who mostly keeps to himself and spends his time enjoying his hobbies in peace. As far as he's concerned, the only reason Shino agreed to come over is because she was desperate. Still, before he can process any of that, she's already in his bathroom taking a shower while he's left standing there wondering how his life somehow turned into this situation. After a while, the bathroom door opens and Shino steps out looking completely refreshed. This sudden appearance nearly gives him a heart attack. She happily thanks him, saying she feels much better now, and he hands her a paper bag for her dirty clothes. Shino thinks it's a smart idea, and he suggests she take them to a cleaner later. As far as Fujiwara is concerned, the mission is complete. She showered, she got clean clothes, everything's soft, time to leave. Unfortunately for him, Shino immediately notices he's trying to rush her out. She starts teasing him, assuming he's worried about his parents coming home and finding a girl in his room. Fujiwara explains that his parents actually work overseas and that he lives by himself. The moment she hears that, her entire train of thought directs and change direction immediately. Now she's asking whether he has secret adult magazines hidden somewhere. Fujiwara gets completely blindsided by the question, while Shino starts searching around the room on her own. He repeatedly tells her to stop being stupid, but she completely ignores him. At one point, she's even making weird cow noises bouncing around looking for hidden treasures. Meanwhile, Fujiwara is standing there wondering how this conversation somehow became his reality. Eventually, Shino finally decides to leave. Once the door closes behind her, Fujiwara slides down onto the floor in exhaustion. The whole experience feels like a storm blew through his apartment and then casually walked away. As he sits there recovering, he tells himself that this was just a strange coincidence. Shino belongs to a completely different world from his own. Tomorrow, they'll go back to being strangers. Or at least that's what he thinks. The next morning, Fujiwara is outside saying goodbye to part of his book collection. After yesterday's unexpected guest nearly discovered all his hobbies, he's decided it's safer to switch more things over to his computer. The sacrifices must be made. Later, when he arrives at school, disaster strikes almost immediately. She walks right up to him in front of everyone. Then she announces that she's returning the clothes she borrowed. Not only that, she openly thanks him for letting her take a shower at his house. The classroom freezes. For a brief moment, silence takes over. Then the gossip starts, and it starts fast. Students immediately began connecting dots that don't exist. Before Fujiwara can explain anything, people are already talking about Shiichono being at his apartment and taking a shower there. His life flashes before his eyes. He can practically feel his peaceful school existence collapsing around him. Meanwhile, Shiichono casually hands him some sweets from a workplace as a thank you gift, completely unaware of the chaos she has just unleashed. Or maybe she is aware. At this point, Fujiwara honestly doesn't know. What he does know is that every single person in the room is staring at him. Unable to handle being the center of attention anymore, Fujiwara eventually retreats. When he finally gets home, he locks the door and collapses in exhaustion. The entire day was a nightmare. As he's thinking about how much trouble Shiichono caused him, he notices a small piece of paper fall out from the bag she returned. Curious, he picks it up. It's her contact information. Immediately, his brain goes into full defensive mode. Instead of seeing it as a normal normal gesture, he becomes convinced it's some kind of trap. Maybe it's a prank. After overthinking it into oblivion, he crumples the note and throws it away. Problem solved. Then, he notices the sweets Shiachona gave him. Since they came from an actual shop, he decides they're probably safe and tries one. To his surprise, they're genuinely delicious. He ends up saving the rest for later while hoping school won't be a complete disaster tomorrow. Unfortunately, tomorrow arrives, and it's absolutely a disaster. As Fujiwara walks through the halls, people are still talking about him. Some students are whispering, while others are openly gossiping. The rumors have somehow evolved into ridiculous territory. At one point, he overhears people suggesting he used blackmail or hypnosis on Shiachona. Bro can't even talk to girls normally and somehow got promoted to anime villain. By the time classes start, Fujiwara just wants the day to end. Then Shiachona starts poking him behind with a pen again and again and again. Every time he tries to focus on a lesson, another poke arrives from behind. Fujiwara decides the best strategy is complete silence. If he ignores her long enough, maybe she'll eventually give up. She does not. Lunch finally arrives, giving him a temporary break. While trying to survive another round of rumors, he overhears Shiachona talking with her friends nearby. This time, however, he hears the full story from her side. Shiachona explains exactly what happened with the gutters and how Fujiwara helped her. He tells him that he invited her over because she needed a shower and that he never acted suspicious or weird. More importantly, she describes him as kind. Her friends seem surprised by that. They point out that Shiachona normally keeps people at a distance and start questioning her about relationships and dating. Shiachona becomes visibly embarrassed and admits she's not particularly good with guys. Listening from nearby, Fujiwara realizes something. Shiachona wasn't trying to spread rumors. She wasn't trying to make fun of him either. She was simply talking honestly. That realization doesn't instantly fix everything, but it does make him reconsider some of his assumptions. Still, he keeps his distance. The poking continues during afternoon classes. Then, it continues the next day, and the day after that. At this point, Fujiwara is fighting for his life against a single pen. Eventually, he reaches his limit. He spins around and finally confronts her, demanding to know what she wants. But the moment he sees her face, all his momentum disappears. Instead of her usual playful attitude, she knows it's embarrassed and strangely downcast. The expression catches him completely off guard. When he asks what's wrong, she quietly points out that she left him a note. Fujiwara pauses. Then it hits him. The note, the one he threw away without even thinking. Shino turns away with an annoyed huff, and from that moment onward, the poaching stops completely. Just like that, the rumors gradually fade. The attention disappears. School returns to normal. Everything should be fine. So why doesn't it feel fine? As Fujiwara walks home, he can't stop thinking about the expression Shino made that day. He keeps telling himself that everything worked out, that things are back to normal, that he should just forget about. But the more he tries to convince himself, the less convincing it sounds. The weather doesn't help either. Dark clouds gather overhead, and by the time he gets home, a major storm has already rolled in. Then, sometime after 9, the doorbell rings. Fujiwara immediately freezes. Nobody should be visiting this late, especially during a storm. The bell rings again and again. Eventually, he forces himself to check the intercom. The moment he sees the screen, he nearly jumps out of his skin. Standing outside in the rain is Shino, completely soaked. Confused, Fujiwara rushes to the door and opens it. Shino apologizes for showing up unexpectedly. Then she asks if she can stay the night. For a second, Fujiwara's brain completely stops working. Before he can even answer, Shino sneezes hard. At that point, there's really only one thing he can do. He quickly hands her a towel and tells her to dry off while he prepares a bath. Shino looks genuinely surprised by how quickly he moves into action. Not long afterward, the bath is ready. Fujiwara gives her some clothes to change into and practically pushes her toward the bathroom before she catches a cold. Shino complains that he's being rough and says he should act more like a gentleman if he wants to be popular. Fujiwara immediately responds that he doesn't care about being popular. That answer seems to amuse her. As Shino heads into the bath, Fujiwara is left alone with his thoughts. And unfortunately for him, his thoughts immediately start dragging him to every cliché scenario he's ever seen in manga. He quickly shuts that down and reminds himself that real life doesn't work like that. At least he hopes it does. Outside, the storm keeps getting worse. The rain grows heavier and heavier while Fujiwara waits. By the time he checks the clock, it's already past 10:30. Apparently, Shino and the bath have entered a long-term relationship. Eventually, the bathroom door opens. Shino comes out looking refreshed and immediately sits right next to him on the couch, way too close for his comfort. The two begin talking, and Fujiwara points out how long she spent in the bath. Shino seems surprised by the time herself and wonders if guys normally finish that quickly. Then the conversation takes a more serious turn. Fujiwara asks whether it's really okay for her to stay here. After all, she's spending the night at a guy's apartment. Shino casually reveals that she told her parents she was staying with a female friend. That answer leaves Fujiwara stunned. When he asks why she didn't stay with an actual friend nearby instead, Shino explains that suddenly showing up at someone's house would be rude. Naturally, Fujiwara points out the obvious problem. Why is it okay to suddenly show up at his place then? For the first time all night, Shino becomes noticeably embarrassed. Then she quietly admits that when she needed somewhere to go, his apartment was simply the first place she thought of. And just like that, Fujiwara finds himself completely speechless. Fujiwara points out that leaving her soaked uniform sitting around all night is a bad idea. With the storm still raging outside, most laundry shops are probably closed anyway. Rather than worrying about it, Shino simply asks if she can borrow some detergent and a bucket. That answer catches him off guard. A few moments later, she's already hand-washing her uniform herself. Watching her work, Fujiwara admits he's surprised. For some reason, he never expected someone like Shino to be good at household chores. Shino immediately calls him out for making assumptions, and even points to the washing instructions on her uniform, explaining that it's meant to be hand-washed. Realizing how wrong his assumption sounded, Fujiwara apologizes right away. That only makes Shino laugh. She seems oddly entertained by how quickly he surrenders whenever she's right. While washing her clothes, she suddenly starts talking about nails. Fujiwara has absolutely no idea where this conversation is going. Shino shows him her hands and explains that flashy nails might look nice, but they're inconvenient when you're constantly helping around the house. She reveals that her family isn't particularly wealthy, so she helps with chores and looks after her younger sister. On top of that, she works at a cafe, which is another reason she keeps things simple. The more Fujiwara listens, the more his image of her changes. From the outside, Shino looks like the kind of girl who has everything handed to her, but hearing her talk about her daily life makes him realize there's a lot more to her than the image everyone sees at school. When he tells her that she actually seems surprisingly responsible, Shino beams with a huge smile. Then she casually admits that talking with him is fun. That simple comment hits Fujiwara harder than expected. Up until now, he'd spent so much time convincing himself that they belonged in completely different worlds. Meanwhile, Shino had apparently just wanted to talk to him like a normal person. Trying to be helpful, Fujiwara offers to assist with the laundry. The moment he says it, Shino's face changes. She starts waving her hands frantically and refuses over and over. At first, Fujiwara can understand why she's reacting so strongly. He even wonders if she dislikes him. That only makes Shino even more embarrassed. Eventually, after struggling to explain herself, she blurts out the reason. She's washing her underwear at the same time. The realization hits Fujiwara like a truck. His brain immediately replays the bucket he'd been staring at earlier. Yep, there definitely was some red fabric in there that wasn't part of a school uniform. At that point, he apologizes at lightning speed and retreats before accidentally making the situation even worse. While Shino finishes laundry, Fujiwara waits in the living room, pretending the last 30 seconds never happened. Eventually, she returns and announces that everything is finished. She also casually mentions that she used his dryer without asking first. Rather than being upset, she's mostly impressed. Apparently, having a dryer at home feels like luxury. When she asks about his own uniform, Fujiwara points toward it, only to suddenly panic about something and immediately start suggesting better drying locations around the apartment. Shino lets out a small sigh of relief, though Fujiwara isn't entirely sure why. With the laundry situation finally handled, the two end up sitting together in the living room. After a few moments of silence, Shino complains that she's bored. Then she asks if they have anything fun to do. Fujiwara wasn't prepared for that question at all. Still, he starts digging through a cabinet while Shino cheers him on from the couch. Eventually, he finds an old game console he had originally bought with the intention of playing with friends. Unfortunately for him, that plan never really happened. Tonight, though, it finally gets some use. The two start playing together, and before long, Shino becomes incredibly competitive. At one point, Fujiwara obtains an item that can ruin another player's progress. Shino immediately demands that he never use it, not even once. She insists she is winning and therefore deserves special treatment. Fujiwara listens patiently. Then, later, he gets another item that can completely swap player positions. Shino is horrified. Still, she remains confident because Fujiwara previously claimed he didn't care about winning. Problem is that Fujiwara never said he wouldn't use the item, so naturally, he uses it. Immediately, the moment their positions swap, Shino lets out a scream of betrayal. She starts smacking him repeatedly, accusing him of lying. Meanwhile, Fujiwara argues that he technically never promised anything. The debate continues until a loud boom echoes outside. Then, everything goes dark. The power's out. Just like that, their game ends. The two sit together in complete darkness while the storm continues outside. Shino checks her phone and wonders if the electricity will return soon, but Fujiwara doubts it. The typhoon has been causing problems all night. Looking at the time, he notices it's already past midnight. At this point, there isn't much they can do besides sleep. That raises a new question. Where exactly is Shino supposed to sleep? Fujiwara immediately offers her his bed. When she asks where he'll sleep, he points towards the sofa. Shino looks around for alternatives, but there aren't any. His parents' room is packed with storage, and there aren't any spare futons available. As far as Fujiwara is concerned, letting a guest sleep on the sofa while he takes the bed would make him feel terrible. Eventually, Shino agrees. She laughs softly and thanks him. Fujiwara brushes it off, saying that she probably wouldn't have come to his apartment in the first place if she thought he was the type of guy who would cause trouble. For some reason, that answer seems to make her happy. The darkness makes moving around difficult, so Fujiwara turns on his phone's flashlight and offers to guide her to his room. Then, without warning, Shino grabs his hand. Fujiwara immediately freezes. Shino notices how cold his hand feels and brings up an old saying about cold hands and warm hearts. Fujiwara dismisses it as a superstition. Shino refuses to let it go. She even asks whether he thinks she's kind. For a moment, Fujiwara grows quiet. Then he thanks her. The sudden gratitude catches Shino completely off guard. Fujiwara explains that despite how distant he acted, she kept treating him normally. She never treated him like some weird outcast. Honestly, he feels grateful for that. He even tells her that she might be the kindest girl he's ever met. The atmosphere instantly changes. Shino's face turns bright red. Before Fujiwara can figure out why, she quickly wishes him goodnight, rushes into the room, and slams the door shut. Fujiwara stands there wondering what just happened. A few moments later, he hears strange noises coming from inside. Concerned, he opens the door, only to find Shino hiding beneath the blanket with her face completely covered. Since she doesn't appear to be in danger, Fujiwara decides it's probably best not to investigate further. Some mysteries are safer left unsolved. He heads back to the sofa and decides to get some sleep. Meanwhile, inside the room, Shino remains buried under the covers, with a face so red she probably could have powered the house better than the electrical grid. The next morning, Fujiwara's wake-up call is far from gentle. He suddenly gets smacked in the forehead with a ladle. When he finally opens his eyes, Shino is standing there holding the weapon proudly. Fujiwara immediately questions whether she's secretly a demon. Shino fires back that he should have woken up earlier. Only then does he notice the smell of freshly cooked food. Looking over at the table, he's stunned to find a full breakfast waiting for him. Apparently, Shino got up early, went shopping after the storm ended, and prepared everything herself. When Fujiwara instinctively reaches for his wallet to repay her, Shino bonks him with the ladle again. She gets annoyed and tells him to stop trying to turn everything into a transaction. The groceries weren't expensive. She'd rather he simply say thank you. For a moment, Fujiwara hesitates. Then he remembers the previous night. Finally, he gives her a proper thank you. Shino immediately smiles, a really bright one. And judging by her reaction, that answer was exactly what she wanted to hear. After breakfast, the two leave for school together beneath a perfectly clear sky. As they walk, Shino casually mentions that this is her first time walking to school with a boy. Fujiwara admits that it's also his first time walking with a girl. Not long afterward, Shino suddenly slips a piece of paper into his hand. It's her contact information. Again, this time she explains that she had actually given it to him before, inside the bag with the borrowed clothes. She assumed he simply lost it. Meanwhile, Fujiwara is standing there remembering exactly what happened to that note, and suddenly feeling very stupid. Shino tells him to not lose it this time. Then she adds that she'll be waiting for his message. Just like that, Fujiwara's face turns red. Naturally, Shino notices immediately. She starts teasing him while he desperately tries to claim it's just a reflection from a bottle. Nobody believes him, especially not Shino. By the time they reach school, the damage is already done. Students notice them arriving together almost instantly. The rumors explode again. Some people are convinced they're dating, others are convinced some kind of dark magic is involved. At this point, the theories somehow keep getting worse. Wanting to avoid another week of chaos, Fujiwara suggests they keep a little distance from each other during school hours. He promises he'll send her a message later that night and even shows her the note as proof. The moment he says that, Shino's eyes light up. As Fujiwara walks away, she loudly reminds him that she fully intends to hold him to that promise. Needless to say, every nearby student hears it. The rumors gain another 1,000 levels. Still, once classes begin, Fujiwara finally starts feeling like his normal life might return. That hope lasts about 5 minutes, because just as he's relaxing, his homeroom teacher, Kyoka Nakayaka, suddenly appears and calls out to him. She asks for his help with something and seems disappointed that her attempt at sneaking up on him failed. During their conversation, she casually points out that Fujiwara is one of the best students in the entire year. In fact, his grades are already good enough that he could probably pass university entrance exams. Naturally, that leads to a question. Why did someone like him choose this school? Fujiwara's answer is incredibly simple. He picked it because it was the closest one to his apartment. After hearing Fujiwara's reason for choosing the school, Nakayaka admits that it's actually pretty logical. Then, completely out of nowhere, she starts talking about how studying too much is unhealthy. Fujiwara has absolutely no idea where this conversation is going. Before he can ask, Nakayaka grabs him by the tie and drags him away. A short while later, they arrive at the school's history archive. The room is packed with mountains of books, records, and old documents stacked across tables. Nakayaka proudly presents the overwhelming workload waiting for them and asks for help sorting everything. Seeing no way out, Fujiwara agrees. As they work through the endless piles, Nakayaka casually shifts the topic toward his personal life, specifically Shino. The moment she mentions that the teachers have noticed him getting closer to his oculate, Fujiwara nearly chokes. Unfortunately, that only encourages her. Nakayaka explains that Shino has always seemed uncomfortable around boys. From her perspective, it looks like she keeps a wall between herself and most men. She suspects that attitude probably developed because of unpleasant experiences somewhere along the way. Then she reaches her actual point, and it hits Fujiwara like a truck. According to Nakayaka, he should date Shino, just like that. No build-up, no hesitation. She simply says it. Fujiwara stares at her in complete disbelief. Meanwhile, Nakayaka continues speaking as if she's discussing tomorrow's weather forecast. She argues that spending time with someone like him could help Shino become more comfortable around men, and it might even improve his own lonely school life in the process. Fujiwara tries to argue logic. First of all, he's not even sure if he wants a relationship. Second, they barely know each other. Third, he doesn't even know how Shino feels. To him, jumping straight to dating makes absolutely no sense. Nakayaka immediately counters every point. She asks whether that means he dislikes Shino. Of course he doesn't. Then she argues that waiting for some perfect reason to like someone misses the point entirely. From her perspective, feelings don't operate according to neat logic. The more she talks, the more Fujiwara feels like her reasoning is completely detached from common sense. The annoying part, somehow, parts of it start making sense anyway. Before they finish, Nakayaka strikes a dramatic pose and tells him to become a wolf. She even makes claw gestures with her hands. Fujiwara decides he's not qualified to understand his teacher anymore. By the time he finally gets home that evening, he's completely exhausted. After collapsing onto his bed, he suddenly remembers the promise he made to Shino. He still hasn't messaged her. Slowly, he pulls out his phone and opens the app. Then, a new problem appears. What exactly is he supposed to say?
After several minutes of overthinking, he settles on the safest option possible. He adds her and sends a simple message introducing himself. Done. Mission accomplished. Or so he thinks. Less than a minute later, his phone vibrates. Fujiwara nearly dropped. Shino has already replied. Not only did she reply immediately, but she apparently had been waiting for his message. Suddenly, the pressure skyrockets. Now he has to continue the conversation. Shino sends several messages in a row, thanking him, teasing his incredibly basic greeting, and generally carrying the entire conversation by herself. Meanwhile, Fujiwara is struggling just to keep up. Every time he sends a reply, another message appears almost instantly. At one point, she starts using abbreviations and internet slang that completely confuse him. For a while, he feels like he's trying to decipher an ancient language. Eventually, he figures things out and politely asks her to use normal words. Thankfully, she does. As the conversation continues, Shino starts sending stickers. Fujiwara discovers an entirely new world. Despite the awkward start, the conversation actually goes surprisingly well. While chatting, Shino learns that he doesn't have any plans for Sunday. Then she casually asks if she can come over to his apartment. Fujiwara immediately freezes. His heart nearly jumps out of his chest. Thankfully, Shino quickly explains herself. She wants to practice making sweets for her cafe job and needs somewhere to work. The clarification saves Fujiwara from completely short-circuiting. He admits that he has absolutely no baking experience, but Shino says that doesn't matter. Eventually, the conversation winds down and both of them head to bed. Lying there afterward, Fujiwara realizes something. Most of that conversation only happened because Shino kept reaching out first. Without her initiative, he probably would have spent an hour staring at his phone trying to write a single sentence. The following school week passes fairly quietly, at least compared to everything that happened before. Shino spends most of her time with her friends while Fujiwara returns to his normal
normal routine. Still, every now and then he notices her glancing in his direction while he's reading. Then Sunday finally arrives. Fujiwara waits at the train station platform as passengers come and go around him. Soon the train pulls in. When the doors open, Shino steps out. Fujiwara raises a hand to greet her. Shino apologizes for making him wait, but he points out that she had already messaged him her exact arrival time. That answer seems to make her happy. She even teases him a little, saying he's gotten much better at using the messaging app. The compliment alone is enough to make his heart skip a beat. Then Shino suddenly becomes serious. She apologizes for bringing someone with her without asking first. The small girl peeks out from behind her. For a brief moment, Fujiwara's brain stops functioning. His eyes move between Shino and the child. Then a terrifying thought appears. Is that her daughter? The second he asks, Shino completely loses it. She immediately denies it at maximum volume. Fujiwara desperately tries to stop the conversation from going any further, but the damage is already done. Eventually, Shino explains that this is the younger sister she mentioned before. The girl politely introduces herself as Miki. Fujiwara greets her, and the misunderstanding is finally cleared up, at least for him. Unfortunately, Miki immediately starts causing problems. When Fujiwara asks whether she tagged along because she likes spending time with her sister, Miki happily confirms it, then casually warns Shino that she only acts innocent at first. According to Miki, once Shino gets comfortable around someone, she becomes a complete troublemaker. Shino does not appreciate this character assassination. What follows is a non-stop sibling argument right there in the middle of the station. Miki exposes the fact that Shino lied to her parents about where she stayed during the storm. Shino tries to defend herself. Miki threatens to tell her parents. Shino panics. Meanwhile, Fujiwara decides the safest strategy is pretending he can't hear anything. Things somehow get worse when Miki starts negotiating. She agrees to keep the secret, but only if Shino gives her something in return. That alone sounds dangerous. Then she reveals her actual demand. She wants to see Shino kiss Fujiwara right now in front of her. Both Shino and Fujiwara nearly stop functioning.
Miki casually explains that she's only ever seen kisses on television and wants to see a real one, as if that's a perfectly normal request. The poor girl then doubles down by asking whether Shino actually likes Fujiwara. For the first time all day, Shino struggles to answer. She fidgets nervously, looks away, tries to deny it, fails, and eventually admits that she probably does have feelings. Miki practically explodes with excitement. To her, this is the greatest development in human history. Meanwhile, Fujiwara is standing nearby, wondering whether the sisters have finally finished arguing. He notices Shino's face is completely red, but has no idea what happened. Wanting to escape the station before another disaster occurs, he suggests heading to his apartment. Miki agrees immediately. Shino quietly follows behind, still mentally recovering from her sister's interrogation. Eventually, they arrive at Fujiwara's apartment complex. Miki is impressed by the size of the building, having grown up in a quieter area. While they head inside, Shino keeps reminding her sister to behave properly. Fujiwara assures her that most of the residents mind their own business anyway, but Shino insists that manners matter whether someone is watching or not. Miki can't help noticing how serious her sister suddenly becomes, especially compared to earlier. Once inside the apartment, Shino begins unpacking her baking equipment. Fujiwara is shocked by the sheer amount of tools she brought. Apparently, she uses all of them regularly. When she asks where his oven is, Fujiwara confidently says he doesn't own one. A few seconds later, Shino points at a sealed box in the room. It's an oven, one he apparently owns. Fujiwara stares in disbelief. The appliance has been living in his apartment longer than his awareness of its existence. Before anyone can recover from that discovery, another problem appears. The missing child, Miki, has vanished. Shino immediately starts panicking. The three split up to search for her. Eventually, Fujiwara discovers the missing child hiding behind the sofa. The moment Shino finds her, she unleashes the full power of disappointed older sister mode. Miki suddenly decides that books are much more interesting. As Shino scolds her, she starts worrying that all of this makes her look irresponsible in front of Fujiwara. The more she thinks about it, the more upset she becomes. At one point, she even starts worrying that he might end up disliking her because of the trouble. Seeing how down she looks, Fujiwara gently places a hand on her head. The reaction is immediate. Shino completely freezes. Miki notices it from across the room. Fujiwara only realizes what he did afterward, and then he freezes too. The atmosphere suddenly becomes very awkward. Eventually, Fujiwara changes the subject by pointing out something important. They forgot to buy the ingredients. Thankfully, Shino suggests going shopping together so they can pick flavors he likes. Problem solved. At the shopping mall, Fujiwara studies a floor guide while the sisters whisper amongst themselves. Miki is absolutely convinced she's witnessing a romance in progress. She starts telling Shino that the head pat was a huge success and claims Fujiwara is already halfway defeated. Shino is horrified by this analysis. That doesn't stop Miki. She starts suggesting increasingly ridiculous plans, including deliberately creating an accident and using the momentum to steal a kiss. According to her, timing is everything. Shino turns bright red. Miki then announces that she is heading to the arcade and leaves them alone. Before disappearing, she reminds Shino that if she waits too long, Fujiwara might lose interest. The words linger in Shino's mind. As Fujiwara checks something on his phone nearby, Shino quietly clenches her fists. For the first time all day, she seems to make a serious decision. Whatever she's planning, she's finally resolved to do something about her feelings.
After sending Miki off toward the arcade, Fujiwara thinks the situation has finally calmed down. Unfortunately, Miki isn't done causing trouble. Before leaving, she sticks out her hand and demands money. Shino hands her a 500 yen coin. Miki immediately complains. That isn't enough. Shino reminds her that she isn't some rich celebrity handing out unlimited allowances. Still, after seeing her continue staring at the coin while trying to decide what she wants to do, Fujiwara ends up giving her a little more money. The moment Miki realizes she now has 1,000 yen, she lights up. Just like that, Fujiwara earns the title of kind big brother. As a reward, Miki offers him a secret. Leaning in, she quietly informs him that Shino is incredibly clumsy and has a habit of tripping on stairs. According to Miki, there's a very high chance it'll happen sometime today. Then she cheerfully runs off before anyone can question her further. Fujiwara is left standing there wondering what exactly that warning was supposed to mean. Meanwhile, Shino immediately scolds him for spoiling her little sister. Fujiwara argues that kids should be allowed to enjoy themselves when they're out. That answer earns him another unexpected comment. According to Shino, he'll definitely spoil his children one day. Then she casually calls him a kind father. The words hit Fujiwara like a critical attack. Marriage? Children? Fatherhood? His brain isn't prepared for any of these topics. Trying to recover, he points out that as a loner, he can't even imagine finding someone to marry in the first place. Shino quietly looks at him. Then she mentions that even people like him eventually get married. More importantly, she wonders if maybe there's already a girl nearby who could fit that role. The question immediately makes Fujiwara nervous. His answer ends up being a confusing mess of maybe yes, maybe no, and maybe something in between. Naturally, Shino demands clarification. Naturally, Fujiwara avoids giving one. Realizing the conversation isn't going anywhere, he quickly changed the subject, pointed out that they've already gathered everything they need. Soon they start heading toward the arcade to pick up Nick. Unfortunately, every elevator is packed because it's Sunday. The escalators aren't much better. That leaves only one option, the stairs. The moment they start heading down, everything changes. Suddenly, a scream echoes behind Fujiwara. He spins around. Shino's foot slips. For a split second, everything slows down. Shino pitches forward. Fujiwara reaches out. The next thing he knows, both of them crash on the floor together. The impact knocks the air out of them, and in the chaos, their lips meet. For a brief moment, neither of them can process what just happened. Then a familiar voice appears. Miki, standing nearby, watching everything. Apparently, she somehow arrived at exactly the worst possible moment. The shocked pair immediately pull apart. Miki asks whether they're okay after such a dramatic fall. Meanwhile, Shino's face is completely red. She stares directly at Fujiwara. Then, before his brain can catch up, she kisses him again, this time completely on purpose. Fujiwara's entire system crashes. Shino's blushing just as hard, but she pushes forward anyway, thanks him for catching her. She points out that they already kissed twice, and since she's already gone this far, she decides to stop holding back. She says that calling him Fujiwara suddenly feels too distant. From now on, she wants to call him Sendai. Then, squeezing her eyes shut, she finally says it. She likes him. Just like that. A direct confession. No escape route, no misunderstandings, no room for interpretation.
Sendai stands there completely stunned. His first instinct is to ask why. Out of all people, why him? Shino struggles to explain it perfect. The answer isn't some grand speech. She simply thinks he's a genuinely nice person. Sendai wonders if maybe she's just caught up in the moment. That suggestion immediately earns him an angry response. After all, this confession took courage. A lot of courage. She's not saying it on impulse. She's saying it because she means it. Then, somehow, the conversation circles back to the kiss. Shino points out that she was wearing flavored lip balm. Naturally, she wants to know how his first kiss felt. Sendai can only admit that it tasted sweet. That answer seems to satisfy her. Not long afterward, she starts insisting that he call her Shino instead of Uzaki. Sendai struggles through the adjustment, while Shino looks incredibly pleased with herself. Eventually, though, her expression softens, tells him not to force an answer. She wanted to be honest about her feelings. If
he doesn't feel the same way, she'll accept it. It'll hurt, she'll probably cry, but she doesn't want to pressure him. For the first time all day, Sandai has no response. Later that evening, the three of them share dinner together, or at least that's what happens physically. Mentally, Sandai has completely left the planet. Miki quickly notices. While eating, she quietly tells Shino that maybe confessing immediately after the kiss was a little too much. Shino insists she only followed Miki's advice about momentum. Miki immediately clarifies that she meant momentum for the kiss, not the entire confession. According to her, Shino used enough momentum to launch Sandai directly into another dimension. Looking at Sandai's blank expression, it's hard to argue. Even after they finish eating, he's still struggling to process everything. Eventually, the day comes to an end. At the train station, Miki thanks him for everything before leaving with their sister. Shino says goodbye using his first date. That alone is enough to make Sandai malfunction again. Once the train disappears, he sits alone on a bench and finally lets reality catch up. Shino likes him. She confessed. They kissed. Twice! The realization hits him all over again. Sandai spends the next several minutes internally collapsing. Then he notices a message from Shino. The text is surprisingly simple. She tells him she won't message him anymore until he's ready to answer. She doesn't want him feeling pressured. Sandai feels relieved, not because she's backing away, but because she's giving him the time he needs to sort through his feelings properly. The next few days at school become incredibly awkward. Shino's seat is still directly behind him. Every interaction feels different now. Every time he passes something back to her, he's painfully aware of her presence. Part of him wonders if he can just avoid the issue forever, pretend nothing happened, keep moving forward. But the more he thinks about it, the more honest that feels. Eventually, he realizes something important. Whenever he thinks about Shino, the image that comes to mind isn't her sad face, it's her smile, and he wants to keep seeing it. That realization finally gives him his answer. For years, being a loner made it easy to run away from difficult situations. This time, he doesn't want to run. Shino was brave enough to confess. Now it's his turn to be brave too. During class, Sandai quietly pulls out his phone beneath the desk. Then he sends a message. A moment later, Shino's phone buzzes behind him. The reaction is immediate. She gasps, covers her face, and starts crying tears of happiness. And just like that, by the end of September during their second year of high school, the girl sitting behind Sandai officially became his girlfriend.
Time passes, the awkwardness fades, and little by little, the two start settling into life as a couple. Students begin noticing the change. People who once doubted the rumors now look at them and think the same thing. They really do look like a couple now. One day after work, Shino visits Sandai's apartment like usual. By this point, they've developed their own little routine. A quick kiss follows. For them, it's become something natural. Immediately afterward, Shino starts asking the truly important question: what flavor was today's lip gloss? Apparently, she's been experimenting. Tangerine, strawberry, vanilla, every option is apparently under review. Sandai tries giving the safest answer possible by saying he likes whatever she likes. Unfortunately, that's not good enough. Shino demands a definitive ranking. Eventually, he chooses strawberry. Shino immediately accepts the result as if a national election has concluded. Another day at school, a teacher notices that Sandai seems different lately, more relaxed, more expressive. The teacher quietly suspects Shino is responsible and happily cheers him on. Meanwhile, their relationship continues growing. One evening, they're playing video games together. Sandai has the lead. Victory seems certain. Then, Shino decides to commit a war crime. Without warning, she kisses him on the cheek. Sandai immediately fumbles the controller. His concentration vanishes, and just like that, Shino steals the win. She celebrates proudly while Sandai complains that her strategy was unfair. Shino disagrees completely. According to her, everything was perfectly legal. Afterward, the two spend some time relaxing together. Eventually, it becomes time for Shino to catch her train home. As they walk outside, Sandai asks whether constantly visiting after work is exhausting. Shino immediately says no. In fact, it's one of the best parts of her day. The answer leaves Sandai quietly embarrassed. Then, Shino brings up another issue. People at school are starting to notice things. Despite trying not to interact much during class, they're apparently terrible at hiding how they feel. Even simple eye contact has become suspicious. Shino jokingly claims it's because she only has eyes for him. Sandai points out that plenty of other guys still stare at her. Shino brushes that off completely. What she really wants is for everyone to know she has an amazing boyfriend. That statement turns Sandai red almost instantly. After thinking about it, he admits she's right. They're dating now. There isn't much reason to hide it anymore. The only thing he asks is that they avoid turning the classroom into complete chaos. chaos. Shino agrees and suggests telling a few friends first so the news spreads naturally. She looks excited about the idea. Sendai, meanwhile, already senses trouble approaching, and unfortunately, his instincts are correct. The very next day, after saying goodbye to Shino, he hears someone call his name in the hallway. Turning around, he finds himself facing a group of girls, and judging by their expressions, they definitely want to talk about something important. The group of girls approaching Sendai turns out to be far less dangerous than he expected. The moment they start talking, they reveal that Shino already told them about the relationship. That alone nearly makes Sendai panic. Meanwhile, the girls are just excited and curious. They admit they never expected Shino to start dating someone, especially so suddenly. Sendai stays defensive for a while, worried they might disapprove. Instead, they hit him with a completely different request. They want his help. Apparently, Shino has been declining invitations to various social gatherings lately, and her friends have been struggling because of it. According to them, Shino is incredibly popular outside of school. She regularly attracts attention from guys from other schools, college students, and all sorts of people. Sendai learns something else too. Shino has apparently received offers to become a model and even an idol before. That information catches him off guard. While he's still processing that, the girls start whispering amongst themselves. Some of them even wonder if she fell for him specifically because he treated her like a normal person instead of some celebrity.
Eventually, they explain their plan. They're hosting a dinner gathering later that evening, and one Sendai had come with Shino. At first, he doesn't like the idea at all. Knowing how uncomfortable Shino can be around guys, he worries that she'd hate being surrounded by strangers. The girls immediately counter with their own logic. If Shino arrives with an official boyfriend, everyone will know she's taken. That means the other guys will stop chasing her and start paying attention to the girls who are actually available. The more they explain it, the more Sendai finds himself understanding their reasoning. Then they start painting an image of him standing protectively beside Shino while making it clear that she's his girlfriend. Unfortunately, that image immediately sends his imagination into overdrive. Before he can recover, the girls decide on something else. Sendai needs a makeover immediately. The verdict is unanimous. He doesn't even get a vote. The next thing he knows, they're dragging him away. Sendai tries asking what exactly they mean by makeover, but nobody listens. According to the girls, Shino would be even happier if he looked cooler. That statement gets stuck in his head. Would Shino actually prefer that? Would she want someone more stylish, more confident, more impressive? Eventually, he gives up resisting and lets them do whatever they're planning. A short while later, they arrive at a beauty salon. The poor stylist barely has time to greet everyone before several girls start demanding that he transform Sendai into a handsome guy. Sendai attempts to offer input. His opinion is immediately overruled. The girls start flipping through hairstyle catalogs while debating his future. One wants an undercut, another wants a Prince-style haircut. Someone suggests a wolf cut. At one point, a completely shaved head somehow enters the discussion. Sendai begins questioning every life decision that led him here. Thankfully, the girls eventually calm down. More importantly, they realize none of them actually know what Shino's preferred type is. After all, she always avoided those conversations. That realization changes everything. Since Shino chose Sendai as he already was, maybe she actually likes simpler guys. With that in mind, they settle on a cleaner and more polished version of his current appearance. Sendai immediately supports this plan. Compared to the shaved head option, it's basically a miracle. The stylist gets to work. Hair falls, the scissors move, the girls take pictures like they're documenting a rare wildlife sign. Eventually, the makeover is complete. When Sendai finally looks in the mirror, even he notices the difference. The girls stare at him for a moment before collectively losing their minds. Apparently, the transformation worked much better than expected. The stylist explains that he mostly refined the existing style while keeping it appropriate for a student. Sendai thanks him and, for a moment, thinks the ordeal is over. It isn't. Now they want to buy him new clothes and shoes and basically everything else. Several hours later, Sendai walks through the city feeling like a completely different person. The girls proudly admire their work while joking that he's suddenly become more attractive. One of them even warns the others not to steal him from Shino. Sendai isn't sure whether that's supposed to be reassuring. More importantly, he's wondering whether Shino will actually like any of this. Then, disaster strikes. One of the girls casually reveals that they already messaged Shino. Sendai nearly stops breathing. Apparently, she just finished work and should arrive any minute. He is nowhere near mentally prepared. A few moments later, they spot her, and judging by how fast she's running, she definitely came the moment she received the message. Shino rushes toward them at full speed. Sendai barely manages to call her name before she reaches him. Then she grabs him hard. The first thing she says is that he is absolutely not allowed to look like that.
Sandai blinks in confusion. The next thing he knows, she's aggressively messing up the hairstyle but took an entire salon visit to create. Every few seconds, she repeats the same complaint. He isn't allowed to look hot. Other girls might start paying attention to him.
At this point, even the girls who organized the makeover are getting nervous. Shino turns toward them and immediately starts scolding them too. According to her, they had no business giving someone else's boyfriend a makeover. He was already perfectly fine. The girls stare. Sandai stares, because this level of jealousy was not what anyone expected. Even Sandai can tell how genuinely upset she is. The realization slowly hits the group. Shino is completely and hopelessly in love. The girls decide the smartest possible decision is immediate retreat. So they run, literally. They just abandon the situation and disappear into the night. Sandai tries calling after them. Before he can follow, Shino grabs the back of his shirt. When he asks what she's doing, she turns the question around. Where exactly does he think he's going? Sandai awkwardly explains that he was planning to ask the others what to do. That answer earns him an immediate insult. According to Shino, he could have just asked her instead. Then her expression softens. With tears gathering in her eyes, she quietly tells him something important. He's her boyfriend. She wants him to rely on her. It would genuinely hurt her if he didn't. The words catch Sandai off guard. He starts apologizing, but Shino quickly tells him that isn't necessary. Instead, she asks for something simple, a hug. For a second, Sandai doesn't understand. Then he realizes she's serious, so he pulls her into his arms. Almost immediately, Shino complains that he's messing up her hair. Sandai starts pulling away. Then she immediately tells him not to stop. Understanding Shino's true feelings sometimes feels like solving a puzzle with missing pieces. Still, he holds her close. After a moment, Shino issues another warning. If some random girl ever approaches him, he is not allowed to become friends with her. Sandai reassures her that she doesn't need to worry. He spent most of his life as a loner. Girls have never exactly lined up to talk to him. Shino immediately argues that there are definitely girls who like that type. But Sandai admits something that's been bothering him. He's more worried about her leaving him someday. The moment he says that, Shino wraps both arms around him tightly. Then she practically shouts that she would never leave him. Hearing that answer eases something inside him. Standing together beneath the night sky, Sandai finally explains the real reason he agreed to the makeover. He genuinely thought it might make her happy. That's all. Shino listens carefully, then points directly at his face. She appreciates the attention, but she also wants him to think more carefully. To make her point, she creates a hypothetical situation. Imagine some random guy taking her out somewhere. Imagine him paying for everything, giving her a makeover, making her look cuter, then bragging about it. Wouldn't that bother Sandai? The answer comes immediately. Of course it would. Shino nods. Exactly. That's why he's not allowed to do things like that anymore. Sandai quickly accepts defeat. Not long afterwards, Shino pulls out her phone and starts calling her friends. She announces that she's done attending those gatherings. Then she starts yelling about people messing with other people's boyfriends when they point out how hard Shino works to make Sandai happy. The moment that topic appears, Shino hangs up immediately. Then she turns back towards Sandai. After a brief pause, she tugs on his sleeve. She says she wants a reset. Before Sandai can ask what she means, Shino closes her eyes and leans forward with a bright red face. Sandai understands exactly what she wants and leans in as well, as they share a quiet moment together in the middle of the city.
After that emotional moment, Shino is the first one to pull away, completely flustered. She immediately asks whether normal couples actually kiss for that long. Sandai starts wondering if he got carried away. Unfortunately, his attempt at an explanation doesn't help at all. He casually admits that her breathing sounded cute, so he wanted to keep listening. The effect is immediate. Shino practically short circuits. With her face completely red, she blurts out that she understands his point and immediately runs off. Sandai can only watch her escape. A few moments later, though, he catches up and grabs her hand. When she looks back at him, he claims he's only holding her hand because she keeps stumbling around. Shino accepts that explanation far too easily. Then she flashes him a huge smile and casually tells him she loves him. Just hearing those words is enough to make Sendai's heart skip a beat. Shino asks whether her confession surprised him since she intentionally wanted it to catch him off guard. Sendai tries acting calm and says he wasn't surprised at all. Then he accidentally lands a critical hit. He tells her that after spending time together, he completely understands why she's so popular. She's just genuinely cute. Now it's Shino's turn to freeze. Immediately afterwards, she starts accusing him of being the insecure secure one. Sendai denies everything very badly. At that point, Shino suddenly announces that she's come up with a way to let more people know they're together. Then she tells him to meet her after school tomorrow. Naturally, Sendai has no idea what she's planning. The following day, classes finally end. Before Sendai could even pack his things, Shino grabs him by the back of his jacket and loudly announces that school is over. Sendai immediately reminds her that they were supposed to be somewhat discreet. Shino ignores him completely. Instead, she reminds him about the promise they made. Then she grabs his hand and drags him straight out of the classroom. The classmates stare, the teacher stares, even random students in the hallway stare. At this point, subtlety is officially dead. As they leave, people immediately start connecting the dots. Some students admit they've noticed the two constantly looking at each other lately. Others realize the rumors were apparently true all along. A few girls even comment that Sendai somehow went from being completely invisible to looking surprisingly cool. Meanwhile, Sendai just wants the floor to open up and swallow him. Shino, on the other hand, looks completely satisfied. As they walk away from school hand in hand, she happily points out that everyone will definitely know they're dating now. And honestly, that was exactly her goal. She admits she couldn't wait any longer because she wants everyone to know that Sendai is her boyfriend. Rather than finding it embarrassing, Sendai finds her honesty refreshing. A little terrifying, but refreshing. Soon, Shino leads him to their destination. Standing before them is a large brick building. When Sendai sees the signs outside, he realizes it's a cafe. A very specific cafe. One that seems to cater almost entirely toward women customers. Shino explains that this is where she works. The moment Sendai steps inside, he immediately understands what she means. Most of the customers are women, and the atmosphere feels completely different from what he expected, considering how uncomfortable Shino can be around guys. Suddenly, her choice of workplace makes perfect sense. Shino tells him to find a seat while she changes into a work uniform. Sendai nods and awkwardly navigates through the crowded cafe. Once he's seated though, he notices something strange. The staff room door has several tiny gaps in it, and through those gaps, he can hear voices. Specifically, voices gossiping about him. Inside the staff room, Shino's co-workers are apparently discussing her mysterious boyfriend. Some of them joke that his presence feels incredibly plain. Others start arguing among themselves. Before the conversation can spiral further, the vice manager steps in and points out that Shino is an earnest person, so it's not surprising she chose someone like him. The discussion continues while Sendai sits outside pretending he can't hear any of it. Unfortunately, he can.
Not long afterward, one of the waitresses approaches him carrying tea and cake. Sendai immediately points out that he never ordered anything. The waitress becomes visibly nervous and asks whether he's Shino's boyfriend. After he confirms it, she explains that the cafe has a special service. Apparently, the boyfriends of employees receive complimentary drinks and desserts. The poor girl becomes increasingly embarrassed throughout the explanation before practically fleeing back to safety. Sendai decides not to question it, especially after tasting the cake. It's delicious. A few moments later, Shino finally appears, and Sendai immediately forgets about the cake. She's now wearing her full waitress uniform. Shino asks for his opinion. Sendai honestly tells her she looks great. That answer makes her unbelievably happy. Then, before he can prepare himself, she calls over all of her co-workers. Sendai realizes too late that he's been set up. Shino proudly introduces him as a boyfriend. The reaction is immediate. Questions start flying from every direction. Sendai is completely overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Shino seems oddly proud of the attention. When the co-workers ask who made the first move, Shino openly admits that she fell for him first. The girls immediately start praising her boldness. Shino accepts the compliments like a champion. At one point, she even explains that she had to guide him toward confessing because boys can be surprisingly timid. Sendai cannot even defend himself. The vice manager eventually joins the discussion and reminds Sendai that being the one who got confessed to comes with responsibilities too. According to her, he should devote himself properly to Shino. The working is delivered with enough seriousness that Sendai instinctively sits up straighter. Not long afterward, the cafe starts getting busy. Shino returns to work, leaving Sendai alone. After finishing his tea and cake, he decides it's probably time to head home. When he tries letting someone know he's leaving, another waitress informs him that Shino's shift is almost over anyway, so he waits. Only a few minutes later, Shino suddenly reappears in her school uniform. She throws up a peace sign and immediately suggests going somewhere together. Apparently, there's something she wants him to see before it gets too late. As they walk through the city, Sendai asks whether it's really okay for her to leave so early. Shino explains that the vice manager specifically told her to spend time with him. Apparently, she also got scolded a little. The free boyfriend service wasn't originally supposed to become an entire social event. Sendai promises from now on he'll just arrive closer to the end of her shifts. The moment he says he'll pick her up, Shino completely lights up. She asks if he's serious. When he confirms it, she immediately hugs his arm and thanks him. Sendai has to hide his face because he's blushing way too hard. Eventually, they arrive at a memorial park. Shino
excitedly explains that she wanted to see the autumn leaves. As they walk through the park, colorful leaves drift through the air around them. The streetlights slowly began turning on as evening settles in. Both of them agreed that the trip was worth it. The scenery is beautiful. The only problem is that Shino is exhausted. After a long day at work and school, she starts yawning repeatedly. At one point, she rubs her eyes without thinking and accidentally smears part of her makeup. Seeing how tired she is, Sandai makes a decision. He tells her to climb on his back. Shino hesitates. Sandai insists. A few minutes later, he's carrying her toward the station. She worries about being too heavy. He immediately shuts that down. According to him, she's perfectly fine. As they continue walking, he encourages her to rest. She eventually relaxes against his back while they make their way through the evening streets. By the time they reach the station, it's time to say goodbye. Or at least it should be. Instead, Shino asks for a goodbye kiss. The two share a quick kiss just as the train announcement echoes across the platform. Then Sandai notices something. Her eyeliner is a complete mess. The moment he points it out, Shino instantly panics. She covers her face and demands that he stop looking. Even so, as he watches her fuss over it, he can't help but thinking that she looks cute regardless. On the walk home, he keeps remembering the piggyback ride and the station and basically everything that happened. Needless to say, his heart isn't calming down anytime soon.
Later that night, while drying his hair after a bath, Sendai sees a television segment about Christmas gifts. That immediately creates a new problem. He wants to get Shino a present, a really good one. The problem is that he has absolutely no idea what girls actually want. Over the next several days, he searches endlessly online. Every article says something different. Every recommendation contradicts the previous one. Eventually, he ends up more confused than when he started. While he's sitting there struggling through gift research, the doorbell suddenly rings. When he checks the monitor, he's surprised to find Mickey standing outside. After letting her in and giving her some juice, he asks why she came all the way over. Mickey casually explains that Shino's busy working and she simply wanted to visit. Everything seems normal. Then, her eyes land on his phone. Immediately, she notices all the gift-related searches, and Mickey slowly looks up at him. Then she asks whether he's trying to find a Christmas present for Shino. When Sendai admits that's exactly what he's doing, Mickey immediately realizes exactly what's happening. Sendai has spent days researching gifts and somehow ended up even more confused than when he started. Naturally, she decides this is her moment. With complete confidence, she declares that she'll tell him exactly what'll make Shino happy. Sendai practically accepts the offer on the spot. At this stage, any help is welcome. Rather than explaining it verbally, Mickey insists that it's easier if she simply shows him at a store. The logic sounds reasonable enough. Then, she holds out her hand. Sendai stares at it. Mickey stares back. After a few seconds, she reminds him that valuable information isn't free. Only then does Sendai realize she's charging a consulting fee. After a brief negotiation, a 500 yen coin jade his hands, then immediately asks for a bonus if the gift turns out to be a success. Sendai reluctantly agrees. The grin that appears on Mickey's face at that moment is honestly a little concerning. As the two head toward the shopping mall, Sendai starts wondering whether trusting her is actually a good idea. Unfortunately, by the time that thought occurs, it's already too late. Eventually, Mickey stops in front of a store, then points inside. Sendai follows her gaze and immediately freezes. It's a lingerie shop. His soul practically leaves his body. Meanwhile, Mickey acts like this is the most natural thing in the world. She asks whether he wants to make Shino happy or not. Sendai desperately searches for an alternative answer. There isn't one. Things somehow get even worse when Mickey confidently explains that she knows Shino's preferences and measurements. Every sentence makes Sendai want to disappear. The situation only escalates when a store employee approaches them. Mickey immediately announces that Sendai is shopping for a present for his girlfriend. Poor guy nearly dies on the spot. The clerk asks normal questions like sizes, colors, preferences, reasonable questions. Unfortunately, Sendai cannot answer a single one of them. Thankfully, Mickey arrives prepared, far too prepared. She produces a secret notebook containing an alarming amount of information about her sister. The clerk compliments Shina's figure. Sendai wants the earth to open beneath him. At one point, he actually retreats behind a wall and tries hiding. Mickey finds him almost immediately. According to her, if the gift is really from him, then he needs to make the final decision himself. That logic forces him back into the battle. The problem is that every option makes him increasingly embarrassed. Eventually, Mickey holds up a particularly fancy set and asks what he thinks. Sendai instantly regrets possessing an imagination. After panicking, he insists they should choose something more normal. Unfortunately, while trying to escape the situation, he grabs something from a nearby display without looking properly. Mickey takes one glance at it, then silently concludes that Sendai's idea of normal is very different from hers. By the time he realizes what happened, the item's already being prepared for purchase. There is no escape. The final price nearly gave him another heart attack. Still, after all that effort, he convinces himself it'll be worth it if it makes Shino happy. Eventually, Eventually, the mission comes to an end and the two head toward the station. Just before leaving, Miki suddenly remembers something. She calls Sandai over. He leans down, expecting some final piece of advice. Instead, Miki surprises him with a quick kiss on the cheek. Then she calmly explains that it's insurance. If he ever breaks his promises, she'll tell Shino he cheated. Sandai is left completely speechless as she boards her train. Watching her leave, he can't help noticing that despite their differences, the sisters share the same frightening ability to catch people off guard. After checking the condition of his wallet and questioning several life choices, Sandai heads toward the cafe to pick up Shino after work. Along the way, another thought occurs to him. Dating is expensive, very expensive. Maybe he should get a part-time job himself, preferably one that lets him spend more time around Shino. For now, though, his destination is the cafe. When he arrives, one of the waitresses welcomes him and points him toward a seat, explaining that Shino is almost finished with her shift. As usual, the special boyfriend's treatment arrives in the form of cake. Sandai quietly enjoys it while waiting. Meanwhile, across the room, one of Shino's co-workers whispers something in her ear. The effect is immediate. Shino's face lights up with pure happiness. Once her shift ends, the two leave together. While walking through town, they stop near a taiyaki stand advertising itself as the next big sensation. Shino immediately wants to try it. As they eat, Sandai casually suggests posting a photo online. That comment unexpectedly leads into a more serious conversation. Shino reveals that she stopped using social media. When Sandai asked why, she explained that she used to receive endless messages from strangers. Even after blocking people, more messages would arrive. The constant attention became exhausting. Hearing that, Sandai starts understanding a little more about why she struggles around unfamiliar guys. Trying to lighten the mood, Shino jokingly asks him to feed her some of the taiyaki. Sandai actually does it. Shino happily takes a bite. Then Sandai notices a bit of ice cream on her nose. Without thinking much about it, he wipes it away. The casual gesture completely catches Shino off guard. She immediately turns bright red. After a moment, she admits that his sudden displays of affection always surprises her, especially lately. Sandai asks if she wants him to stop. Shino quickly shakes her head. No, definitely not. As they continue walking, the topic shifts toward Christmas. Shino reveals that she specifically rearranged her work schedule. She volunteered to work on Christmas Eve so she could have all of Christmas Day free. And the reason is exactly what Sandai thinks it is. She wants to spend the entire day with him. The confession leaves her blushing. Sandai immediately agrees. That sounds perfect. Naturally, Shino teases Sandai by pointing out that he doesn't exactly have a packed social schedule anyway. In response, Sandai casually mentions that he's already bought her Christmas gift. The excitement on Shino's face is immediate. Now she's even more excited for Christmas than before.
By early November, Shino prepares another bento for Sandai, and this one has a heart made from pink fish flakes. She explains that she tried to shape her feelings into the meal, but apparently her love was so massive the heart literally overflowed. Sandai, being completely used to this by now, just smiles and tells her he's happy to accept all of her love, even the parts that spill over. Meanwhile, their classmates are watching this from a distance, like they've just witnessed something way too intimate for a normal lunch break. Shino asks how the tamagoyaki tastes, and Sandai tells her it's delicious, also a bit sweeter than usual. She shyly explains that she adjusted the recipe specifically for his taste. Sandai thanks her for always making food for him and casually says he feels lucky. And yeah, that instantly makes her even happier, as she promises to make even better bentos for him now on. After school, just as they're about to head out, Shino suddenly stops because something on her phone catches her attention. But before they can even continue walking, someone blocks their path. It's the class representative standing in the middle of the hallway with his arms crossed like he's about to deliver judgment. Shino and Sandai try to walk past him, thinking he's probably talking to someone else, but no, he stops them directly. He says he has business with them because he's heard about their relationship, which immediately catches Sandai off guard. Then he points around the hallway. Other students are busy carrying boxes and festival supplies, and the class rep reminds them of something important. The school festival is only 1 week away, and according to him, these two have contributed contributed absolutely nothing to the preparations. Shino explains that she has bad memories related to festivals and is also busy with her part-time job. Sandai adds that he works too, and since participation is optional, he planned to skip the whole thing. He even bluntly says school festivals aren't exactly made for loners. The class rep pauses for a second, then suddenly shouts the most important question in his life. How is a loner dating such a beautiful girlfriend? Yeah, bro had priorities. After that emotional outburst, he explains their class is doing a cafe and begs them to help however they can. And then without warning, he drops into a deep bow right there on the floor and starts pleading with full passion. He says school festivals only happen 3 times during high school. Next year will be consumed by exam pressure, so this is one of the last big chances to make memories together. Sandai glances at Shino and asks what she thinks. The class rep instantly explodes with joy, convinced his speech worked, only to get kicked in the stomach by Shino when he tries to get too close to Sandai in excitement. She tells him very clearly not to cling to someone else's boyfriend. Yeah, boundaries established. Sandai starts thinking about it more seriously. Shino mentions that if they help from the preparation stage, the whole festival might feel more memorable. Sandai agrees, admitting that pretty much anything becomes fun when he's with her. Shino immediately calls him out because she can tell he's already imagining enjoying the festival with her. The class rep starts crying from happiness, and with that, both Sandai and Shino officially agree to participate. The next day, Sandai realizes something surprising. He's actually looking forward to the festival. Shino suggests they find a task they can do together, so they go to offer help. But the reaction they get is weird. The male classmates tell them everything is under control and that they don't need help. The girls also politely reject them, saying they don't want to interrupt the couple's time together. Shino insists they genuinely came to help, but Sandai quickly realizes the real problem. Everyone feels awkward around them. And then one classmate asks Shino if she'd be willing to wear a revealing outfit while serving customers at the cafe. Shino answers without hesitation. She says she only wears revealing clothes in front of Sandai. Silence. Absolute silence. The entire class gets hit with psychic damage.
One classmate jokingly asks Sandai what exactly Shino wears when they're alone, and Sandai immediately starts imagining her in a skimpy bunny outfit serving drinks. And nope, instant rejection. He loudly declares such outfits violate school rules. Bro rejected is so fast, you already know the mental image was dangerous. Shino calmly says she'll follow her boyfriend's opinion. Since nobody will let them help, the two end up sitting on the school stairs looking kinda defeated. That's when the class representative appears behind them like a horror movie villain. He says he appreciates their willingness to help, but also teases them for spending all their time just showing off how close they are. Sandai argues they're just acting normally, which somehow annoys the guy even more. Then, the rep finally gives them a task. One student has been struggling with cooking practice for the cafe, and since Shino is good at cooking, he wants her to help. Before Shino can object, the guy dumps the responsibility on them and disappears. Sandai admits the class representative is surprisingly thoughtful, though Shino calls it meddling since they were about to go home. Still, they head toward the cooking practice room. Inside, they find a girl working alone, Takasego Mahiro. She looks completely exhausted while surrounded by colorful dough. Shino recognizes her as a classmate. As they watch quietly from the doorway, Takasego adds food coloring to dough and somehow gets her hand stuck inside a cookie cutter. Yeah, that pretty much tells you how this is going. Shino decides that's enough observing and opens the door. Takasego gets so startled she practically hides behind the counter. Shino reassures her and explains the class representative sent them to help. She introduces herself and offers assistance, mentioning she's pretty decent at baking. When Takasego hears the class representative specifically sent them, she gets weirdly flustered, like extremely flustered. She starts blushing hard just thinking about him caring enough to help her. Interesting. After thanking them, she shows them the cookies she believes came out well. Sandai immediately senses danger. The cookies look like misshapen, brightly colored blobs with an aura that screams biological hazard. Shino struggles to find something nice to say and awkwardly comments that colorful sweets are common overseas. Takasego insists appearances don't matter. They need to taste them. Shino takes the first bite. Instant disaster. She doubles over in pain. Sandai panics and rushes towards her. When Takasego starts apologizing, Shino, barely alive, tells Sandai he needs to try one himself so he understands the severity. Despite Takasego trying to stop him, Sandai takes a bite. Big mistake. The moment it hits his tongue, his entire body shuts down. He practically starts foaming at the mouth. Both of them reach the same conclusion. These are not
cookies. This is industrial waste. Serving these at the festival would cause a full-scale incident. Takasego goes quiet and apologizes. She explains everyone else on the cooking team is doing fine, but she's the only one struggling, so she's been practicing alone. She also reveals the class representative tried her cookies before, collapsed from them, and still encouraged her to keep trying. That's when Sandai realized the truth. That man didn't solve the problem. He outsourced the suffering. Takasego sadly wonders if she'll ever make proper sweets, but Shino steps in without hesitation. She tells Takasego she'll teach her properly, and just like that, Takasego starts crying from relief. Shino reassures her that they'll find every mistake and fix them one at a time. Then Takasego prepares to start over and immediately reaches for purple paint. Shino stops her so fast it's not even funny. Apparently, Takasego thought actual paint could be used for coloring. Then she pulls out toilet cleaner and asks if sterilizing ingredients with this would help. Sandai and Shino both freeze. No, absolutely not. Takasego argues that strong sterilizing power prevents bacteria and food poison. Shino nearly screams while telling her to put it away. Just wash your hands. That's enough. Then Takasego suggests putting disposable hand warmer contents into the dough so the food stays warm from the inside. At this point, Sandai realizes something. She isn't trying to sabotage anyone, she's genuinely trying her best. Her logic is just catastrophically cursed.
Knowing he has zero cooking skills compared to Shino, Sandai decides his role is simple: sit down and survive. After a long struggle, the sun starts setting as Shino and Takasego finally finish a new batch. Shino picks one up and tells Sandai to taste it. He looks traumatized after the earlier experience, but Shino tells him to trust her. His body is literally shaking, but he gives in and takes a bite. And it's good. Actually good. Shino explains to Takasego that following the recipe properly solves basically everything. Takasego lights up in joy. She actually made something edible. She promises not to add weird original ideas anymore. Since it's getting late, Shino tells her they should head home. Takasego watches them leave and quietly wonders if the class representative will praise her for improving. It's pretty obvious she thinks highly of him. While walking through the school, Shino notices Sandai staring at her. She asks what's wrong. Sandai blushes and admits something unexpected. He suddenly wants to kiss her. Shino immediately closes her eyes and leans forward. No hesitation, no embarrassment, just full readiness. Sandai quickly checks the hallway to make sure nobody's around, then leans in. They kiss in the middle of the empty corridor. A moment later, a sudden sound nearby startled him. They pull apart and Shino notices how fast Sandai's heart is beating. She quietly tells him she understands. Her own heart races every time they kiss too, and her whole body feels worn afterward. Then, completely unfazed, she asks for another kiss and leans in again. But just before they can continue, Sandai hears footsteps. Panic mode activated. A girl in a lab coat carrying a flashlight turns the corner. She scans the hallway with the light and walks right past them without noticing anything. Only after she disappears does Sandai finally breathe again. He recognizes her as Nikeo. Thank goodness they weren't caught. Sandai admits kissing at school is way more nerve-wracking than he expected. Shino reminds him he was the one who suggested it in the first place. Still, she shyly admits something. The fear of being seen actually makes her heart race even more. Yeah, these two are dangerous. The next day, festival prep continued. The class representative thanks Sandai for helping and asks him to pass along his appreciation to Shino. Sandai tells him to say it himself, but the guy immediately refuses. He's too scared of Shino. Sandai remembers that brutal stomach kick from earlier and completely understands. As he walks away, he notices Takasego approaching the class representative with a small bag of sweets. She says she practiced more after getting home and asks him to taste them. She looks nervous but determined, promising there are no weird ingredients this time. The class representative cautiously takes a bite while she watches with intense focus. After chewing for a second, his eyes widen. He's genuinely impressed. The sweets actually taste normal. No poison, no chemical warfare, just actual sweets. Takasego gets a little embarrassed when she realizes he really did think her previous cooking was toxic. The class representative awkwardly tries to backtrack, claiming he didn't mean poison, he just meant they weren't unique anymore. Sandai watches from a distance and immediately thinks the excuse is terrible. Yeah, bro is not smooth at all. So after that awkward sweet tasting moment between Takasego and the class representative, the conversation shifted towards something a lot less sugary: final exams. Takasego says she'll cheer for the class representative during exam season, and that instantly fires him up. He declares that this time he's absolutely taking first place in the entire grade. Apparently there's this mysterious top student who always beats him, and since the school only reveals rankings, not names, nobody actually knows who that person is. Sandai overhears this and finds it pretty interesting. She
casually says they should celebrate if he really manages to take first place, while Sandai fully backs the class representative like a proud sports coach. But then he notices Shino looking unusually serious and asks what's wrong. She admits she was thinking about the upcoming exams. A second later, though, she regains confidence and says exams aren't really a problem since she's handled and fine so far. Sandai isn't totally convinced by that sudden confidence boost, but he takes her hands and offers to help her study anything she struggles with.
He even admits he's partly trying to look cool by showing off his academic side. Shino blushes and thanks him. Sandai also passes along the class representative's compliment about her hard work during the festival prep. But Shino just sticks out her tongue and says she doesn't care about that guy's opinion anyway. Instead, she's focused on tomorrow, the school festival. She excitedly talks about walking around the festival with Sandai and also proudly notes that Takasego had improved a lot with their sweets. Shino declares that they've officially done their duty for the class, and Sandai gives most of the credit to her before heading off to his part-time job. Later, Sandai starts scrolling through job listings on his phone. He decides he needs another part-time job and eventually finds an opening for cleaning staff at a newly opened aquarium. The job sounds perfect. Minimal social interaction, quiet environment, just cleaning. Honestly, peak introvert employment. Even though he's nervous, he calls to apply, telling himself he needs money if he wants to keep making fun memories. Soon, he arrives at the Marukawa Aquarium for the interview. He finds the interview room, knocks, and gets no answer. Since nobody responds, he sits down nearby the wait. That's when a girl in a high-neck sweater approaches him and asks if she's also there for the interview. She smiles brightly and asks if she can sit beside him while they wait. Sandai agrees, and she introduces herself as Seki Hajime, a second-year student. Then Sandai freezes, because Seki refers to himself as a masculine pronoun. Sandai introduces himself, and Seki gets excited that they're the same age. He apologizes for speaking casually, but Sandai tells him casual speech is fine. Then Seki says something that completely stuns him. He says he's relieved the first person he met is the same gender as him. Sandai's brain just stops. Wait, what? He asks Seki to repeat him. Seki calmly repeats himself, confused about why Sandai's reacting weirdly. Sandai tries to pretend everything's normal, while internally short-circuiting. Seki leans closer, asking if something's wrong. Sandai immediately tells him not to get any closer. Yeah, bro, it's overwhelmed. Before things get weirder, the interviewer arrives and calls them in. They sit down and hand over their resumes. The interviewer reviews them and confirms they're both applying for the cleaning staff position. Then she casually drops a bomb. She says Seki is actually a guy and comments on his cute appearance, almost feeling wasted, according to her. It'd be perfect for cosplay events. Sandai finally gets full confirmation. Yep, Seki is a guy. Seki explains that at his previous job, management kept forcing him into embarrassing outfits, like a girl's Chinese dress to serve customers. He actually starts tearing up while remembering creepy older men staring at him. Yeah, okay, that's rough. The interviewer apologizes for bringing it up, but Seki Havo says it happened because he was too weak to refuse. After reviewing everything, the interviewer suddenly hires both of them on the spot. Apparently, almost nobody applies for cleaning jobs, so there's not much competition. She introduces herself as Kamalaki Mika, the 28-year-old deputy manager, and says she'll contact them later about training. Sandai walks out feeling shocked. He passed his first job interview. Just like that. As he's leaving, Seki calls out and grabs his sleeve to stop him. Seki excitedly points out that they both got hired and suggests they exchange contact information in case they need to coordinate work stuff. Sandai's got off guard, but Seki insists it's totally normal for coworkers to have each other's contacts. He stares at Sandai with intense expectation until Sandai gives in. Fair enough. Seki immediately asks for his phone number, line ID, and social media. Sandai awkwardly admits he barely uses any apps. Seki looks absolutely horrified. Sandai explains he's a lonely introvert and has no real use for social media. Seki immediately calls cap. He insists he's also an introvert and begs Sandai to at least install Line. Then he gets way too excited and suggests they take couple-style selfies together using stickers. Sandai just stares. Why is this guy so aggressive? Then he says they should be friends since they met through work. That catches Sandai off guard. Friend. The word hits differently. Still, Sandai realizes having someone familiar at work would definitely help, so he agrees.
They exchange contacts, though Sandai firmly draws the line at couple selfies. Once it's done, Seki happily says they'll get along great. Sandai feels oddly overwhelmed by how close Seki keeps getting. As he looks at his phone, he notices something strange. Besides Shino, Seki is now his first saved contact, and for some reason, that gives him a weird fluttery feeling. Making a new friend feels surprisingly new. Then he decides something important. Yeah, no need to tell Shino about this. Anyway, festival day finally arrives. The school is packed. Inside the classroom
class representative looks like he's already having a mild emotional breakdown while Shino gets ready for her shift. Sande looks around in shock at how crowded everything is. He had no idea the festival would attract this many people. Shino mentions that last year she helped in a haunted house and played the monster. Apparently, she became insanely popular. Sande can't help but wondering what that looked like. Honestly, same. Their class cafe opens and Shino works behind the scenes in the kitchen while Sande helps nearby. She asks him to pass the honey. Sande hesitates because she keeps adding more and more, worrying the scones will become way too sweet. But Shino explains that honey tastes different depending on the flower source. She's using chestnut blossom honey, which is slightly bitter. Sande realizes that actually makes sense. Then a classmate suddenly points out something dangerous. In English, honey is also a term for affection. And just like that, someone suggests Sande should call Shino honey. Instant reaction. Shino's eyes sparkle. Then her entire face turns red. She hides her face and starts panicking over how embarrassing that sounds. Meanwhile, all the single classmates around them suffer emotional damage, yet again wondering why Sande gets to have such a cute girlfriend. Orders suddenly start pouring in. Tea, cookies, macarons, everything at once. Sande gets surprised by the sudden customer rush and peeks outside to see what caused it. Then he sees it. The waitresses are wearing bunny girl outfits. Oh no, the strategy works way too well. Male customers are flooding in to see the girls. Sande is immediately annoyed because this is exactly the kind of costume he never wanted Shino wearing. Then a male classmate runs over with a sign. Apparently they made another one. Perfect timing. The sign basically advertises cute girls in revealing costumes now serving in room 2A. Sande stares at this in disbelief. His classmate tells him to walk around the school with the sign and attract more customers. Sande flat out refuses. He points out that a sign like this could absolutely get them in trouble. But his classmate has already lost all sanity and starts yelling about pushing sales until the very end. Sande realizes logic is useless. So with a defeated sigh, he gives up and reluctantly walks around holding the sign. And then someone grabs his shoulder. A woman with long hair wearing a white coat glares at him. She demands to know exactly what he thinks he's doing. Sande completely freezes. She reminds him that she approved a cabaret, not a cabaret club. Sande stammers, trying to explain that he was just told to carry the sign, but she cuts him off. Outsiders are visiting the festival too. This is completely inappropriate. Then she drops the hammer. The class event is suspended. A closure sign gets taped to the classroom door. Honestly, yeah, nobody's surprised. The girls in the bunny outfits try defending themselves, saying they were just wearing flashy clothes and even got tips from customers. One girl argues that only someone with a dirty mind would think the outfits were erotic. The teacher stares at them in silence. Then she tells them to shut up. Yeah, conversation over. The boys offer lazy apologies, which only makes things worse. The teacher, Miss Nakaya, confiscates every costume and warns them if even one complaint reaches the principal, they're done. Then she orders everyone to leave and enjoy the rest of the festival somewhere else. Just like that, Class 2A's cafe is finished. Sande and Shino stand in the hallway processing what just happened. From inside the room, the class representative can be heard screaming in despair about how this was supposed to be the ultimate school festival. Poor guy. Shino talks with a friend about how the class representative probably approved the costumes because he secretly wanted to see them.
Apparently, the girls only told him they'd wear bunny and cat costumes. They conveniently forgot to mention this part. Yeah, bro got baited. Shino points out normal 2 costumes would have worked just fine. Zendaya briefly considers apologizing to the class representative, but decides there's probably no save in that situation. So instead, he and Shino go enjoy the festival together. They pass different booths, including a fortune-telling stand. They decide to try a compatibility reading. The result? Perfect score. The fortune teller even predicts they'll get married. Not subtle at all. After that, they walk around sharing chocolate-covered snacks, enjoying the festival like a proper couple. They enter a haunted house and Zendaya, despite acting cool, gets terrified almost immediately and ends up clinging to Shino. Yeah, not his proudest moment. After walking around for a while, Shino gets tired and asks for a piggyback ride. Zendaya agrees and carries her through the hallway while she happily points out where to go next. Eventually, Zendaya says he's going to grab drinks from the vending machine and asks what she wants. Shino says anything is fine, but Zendaya insists he wants to do something boyfriend-like for once since she's always taking care of him. That makes Shino smile. She asks for milk tea. Zendaya buys it and starts heading back, but then a strange sound comes from a nearby room. Zendaya stops. Something about that noise feels off. Zendaya follows the strange sound and peeks into the nearby room, and what he sees almost makes his brain shut down. Standing inside is Miss Nakaya. Yes, the same strict teacher who shut down our cafe, wearing one of the confiscated bunny girl outfits. And somehow it gets worse. She looks unbelievable unbelievably embarrassed while another woman keeps encouraging her, insisting she's still young and should have more confidence. Nakaya's sensei keeps protesting about her age and the outfit, but the other woman starts counting down like this is some kind of performance rehearsal. 3, 2, 1. And then Nakaya's sensei jumps and shouts a bunny-themed catchphrase. Zendaya freezes. The room freezes. Everyone freezes. A horrible silence fills the air as both women slowly realize Zendaya is standing right there at the door. The awkwardness is so intense it could probably crush steel. Nakaya's sensei completely breaks down and starts talking like a panicking rabbit, begging Zendaya to forget everything he just saw. Zendaya quickly considers his options. Black belly teacher? Absolutely not. Protect her dignity? Yeah, that sounds safer. He quietly closes the door and decides to pretend the entire thing never happened. As he walks away, he thinks this kinda evens things out anyway, since Nakaya sensei was pretty lenient when she almost caught them kissing in the hallway before. Honestly, fair trade. He returns to Shino and hands her the milk tea. She immediately notices his shaken expression and asks if something happened, saying he looks like he's all ghost. Zendaya pauses, then simply said he saw a giant bunny. Shino guest accepts that statement and drinks her milk tea, saying it tastes great. As they continue walking, Zendaya mentions that the festival is almost over and brings up the class gathering afterwards. Apparently, some classmates want to go to karaoke. Shino immediately says she'd rather spend time alone with him. Zendaya feels exactly the same, so the two decide to head home instead. Later that night around 10 p.m., Zendaya is back home thinking about getting ready for school and catching his anime, when his phone suddenly buzzes. It's a message from an unknown number. The text desperately begs him not to reveal what he saw in the infirmary and says he can ask for anything in return. Zendaya stares at it. At first, he thinks it's some weird scam, then it clicks. It's the teacher. He replies that he has absolutely no idea what the center is talking about and he didn't see anything at all. Case closed. At least that's what he tells himself. Sunday arrives and it's time for Zendaya's aquarium job training. Seki waves at him the moment they meet. Zendaya greets him and asks how he's doing. Seki admits he's nervous about remembering everything during training. Zendaya stares at him for a sec. Seki asks what's wrong. Zendaya says nothing but comments that it somehow feels like they haven't seen each other in half a year. Seki gets annoyed and reminds him they literally met last week.
Sendai responds with some cryptic nonsense about the world being full of mysteries and traps, which only confuses Seki even more. Then, Seki brings up something he's been annoyed about. Sendai never texted him. Sendai says there wasn't really any reason to. Seki complains that he felt lonely. Sendai immediately asks if Seki is teasing him with some weird fetish. Seki blushes and looks away, quietly saying that's not what he meant. Sendai explains that because he spent so long as a loner, he honestly doesn't know how normal texting works. Seki says it'd be nice if Sendai messaged him first sometimes. Apparently, initiating contact makes Seki feel like he's losing some kind of battle. Sendai has no idea what competition this guy's even talking about. Their supervisor arrives carrying a package and praises him for being 15 minutes early. Seki enthusiastically says good morning. Sendai looks confused. It's past noon. Seki explains in service jobs, coworkers say good morning regardless of the actual time. Sendai accepts the explanation even if it makes zero sense to him. The supervisor hands them uniforms. Sendai stares at his work clothes and realizes his first part-time job is officially starting. Seki pulls out his uniform and excitedly points at the dolphin illustration on the back. Then he suggests something terrifying. They should change together. Sendai nearly circuit breaks. He immediately says no and insists on changing in the restroom. Seki keeps pushing, asking why they can't just change in the same space. He even asks if Sendai hates him. Sendai clarifies that no, he just values privacy while changing. The supervisor watches all this with an amused smile. Sendai escapes to change as fast as possible. When he returns, Seki's already dressed and says he waited for him so they could go together. Sendai says he didn't need to wait, but Seki insists he genuinely wants him to become closer. Then Seki turns toward him and asks something absurd. Would Sendai like to hold hands? Sendai stares. Do guys even do that? Seki laughs and admits he was joking. He says Sendai is adorable and claims this level of closeness is normal these days. Sendai is not convinced. The supervisor gives both of them manuals and explains their duties. The work is simple, just follow procedures and learn the layout for now. Each person gets assigned specific areas. Today's first task is easy. Pick up trash around the ground. That's all to be bagged once they finish. Sendai starts working with tongs, carefully collecting candy wrappers, tissues, and other trash. He approaches the task the same way he approaches studying: steady, focused, efficient. Soon, he's surprised by how much random garbage people actually leave behind. Oddly enough, he kinda enjoys the work. When he returns, Seki complains that Sandai finished way too fast. The supervisor explains the speed difference as the usual stamina gap between boys and girls. Sandai immediately points out that he's a boy too. The supervisor freezes, then blushes. Yeah, she forgot. She quickly changes the subject and tells them to separate the trash. While working, she comments that most people think cleaning is boring, but Sandai says he actually finds it interesting. That clearly impresses her. She praises him and says he'll grow into a very dependable man. Then she jokingly says maybe she should claim him early. Sandai shuts that down instantly. He already has a girlfriend. The supervisor looks skeptical and asks what she looks like. With a tired sigh, Sandai pulls out his phone and shows a picture of Shino. The reaction from the supervisor is immediate. Shock. Pure shock. She admits she stands zero chance against someone that cute. Sandai reminds her there's also a 10-year gap age and says it would literally be a crime for an adult to target a student. The supervisor whines that she's only 28 and desperately wants a boyfriend. Sandai just stares at her with the flattest expression imaginable. A little later, training's over. The supervisor says she'll send them their temporary schedules and dismisses them. Sandai feels relieved everything went smoothly. Seki agreed, though he says there's still a lot to remember, especially trash sorting. As they prepare to leave, Seki suddenly asks Sandai to wait. He wants to ask something important. Does Sandai really have a girlfriend? Seki heard the girls is insanely cute and demands poof.
Sandai is caught off guard by the sudden intensity. He shows the photo again. Seki's eyes widen. He says Shino is even cuter than a professional idol. Then he recognizes her, Usedzaki Shina. Apparently, she's popular even at Seki school. And because she avoids social media, nobody can get her contact info. That makes her weirdly legendary. Seki explains Shina avoids social media because she doesn't want creepy messages from random guys. Sandai honestly didn't know that. Seki asks how someone like Sandai even got close to her. Sandai casually explains they're classmates, and she sits right behind it. While talking, Seki reapplies hand cream and Sandai notices the scent. Seki mentions it's a super popular product from a famous company and asks if Shino uses the same brand. Sandai says maybe. Then Seki says something useful. Because of the cute packaging, it's a very popular gift. That word hits Sandai hard. He starts thinking seriously, would this work as a Christmas or a birthday present? Seki says yes. Then Sandai asks something weird. What would a girl think if she gave a guy underwear as a gift? Seki looks genuinely confused. He says he'd be extremely perplexed. Underwear isn't exactly a normal gift. Then he asks Sandai how he'd feel if Shino gave him something bizarre. Sandai admits he'd be confused too. Seki says exactly. That's basically how bad gifts feel. Sandai suddenly starts worrying about his own gift sense. Thankfully, Seki reassures him. Girls are surprisingly forgiving. If they genuinely like someone, they'll usually forgive small weird habits. Sometimes those awkward mistakes even seem cute. That makes Sandai feel a lot better. Seki waves goodbye at the subway entrance, and later that evening, Sandai walks home with Shino after another exhausting day. A cold winter wind blows past them. Shino shivers. Sandai comments that winter has finally arrived. Then he notices Shino looking at him. She asks what's on his mind. Sandai gives a vague answer, but internally he's stressing hard. He still hasn't figured out what gift to get her. Then Shino suddenly takes off her thick scarf and wraps it around his neck. She smiles and asks if he feels warmer now. Sandai admits it's really warm. Just then, Shino's phone gets a message. He checks it and looks surprised. It's from her father. Apparently, he's asking how she's doing. Sandai jokingly tells her to mention him in the reply. Shino laughs and says their relationship will definitely become the main topic. Then she starts teasing him. She reminds him how hilariously short his texts are. His first message to her was literally just his name. She even offers to show the chat history as evidence. Sandai instantly refuses. Still, her words make him think about texting his own father. Shino gives him simple advice. Just be natural. Usually the first thing that comes to mind is the most honest. So Sandai sends his father a message. It basically says, the girl sitting behind me likes me. I think I'm done for. Yeah, that's one way of phrasing it. A few days later, Sandai is at home pouring tea for Shino when something almost goes horribly wrong. He notices the closet door is slightly open. Inside, there's a shopping bag. Shino notices it too. She asks what it is. Sandai instantly panics. He rushes over and blocks the closet like his life depends on it. He practically shouts that she absolutely cannot look inside. Shino's startled and asks if it's really that secret. Sandai begs her to ignore it. Then he says something important. No matter what, he's not giving it to her today. Shino pauses. Then she smiles. She figures it out. It's a gift, probably for Christmas. She says she'll look forward to receiving it then. Sandai forces an awkward laugh, barely surviving that close call. Then
Shino reminds him that Christmas isn't the only important thing coming up. Sandai looks confused. Then it hits him. Exams. End of term exams. Shino suddenly gets really embarrassed and finally asks for help. She begs Sandai to help her study because she's terrified of failing. Sandai just stares at her in silence. Then he reminds her of something. He offered to help ages ago, so why is she only asking 1 week before exams? Shino said she didn't want to burden him. Sandai thinks about her schedule. Between school and part-time work, she probably didn't even have time to worry about grades until now.
He mentally reviews the amount of material left. 1 week. Very little time, and if Shino is scared of failing, her grades are probably rough. He originally wanted at least 2 weeks to prepare properly, but worrying about that now won't help. Shino nervously asks if he's angry. Sandai thinks for a moment. She remembered his offer, and when she needed help, she came to him. That matters. Finally, he tells her he isn't angry. He's just trying to figure out the best way to teach her. After hearing Shino ask for help, Sandai tells her to wait a second while he thinks through the situation. The more he calculates the amount of material they need to cover, the more panic starts building inside him. 1 week, just 1 week. Catching up that much in that little time is honestly insane. Shino apologizes for not asking him sooner, but Sandai immediately shuts that down. He tells her this is on him too. He was the one who told her to rely on him, so now he has to take responsibility for those words and see this through properly. Then he makes the declaration. For the next week, they're doing nothing except studying. Shino promises she'll give it everything she's got. Sandai rolls up his textbook like a weapon, and Shino immediately points out that he looks terrifying right now. He insists he's not angry. He's just becoming a strict tutor because the situation is that bad. Shino stares at him and says he absolutely looks angry. Sandai just laughed and says they're going all in until failing becomes impossible. Shino shouts that she'll do her best, and just like that, boot camp begins. They start with long study sessions at a small table, then move to studying at a park bench, where Sandai basically starts from the fundamentals. For English, he's teaching her using beginner-level material because they have to rebuild from the ground up. Back at school, the whole class starts noticing something unbelievable. Shino is studying. Actually studying, and Sandai is the one tutoring her. Rumors spread fast. Some classmates are genuinely shocked, while others immediately assume this is hopeless. Even Shino's own friends, who aren't exactly academic monsters themselves, basically say success is impossible. They bluntly declare that among all of them, Shino is the worst student by far. Yeah, emotional support level? 0. Sandai ignores it all. No distractions, only results. A few days pass, and suddenly they only have 4 days left. Sandai starts thinking hard about how to squeeze in more study time. Then he comes up with a new plan. Starting today, he'll walk Shino home every day. Shino is completely off guard. She's happy, obviously, but also confused. Her house is far, really far. She reminds him that her home is about an hour away by train in a pretty rural area. Is he seriously okay with that? Sandai doesn't understand why distance matters. That answer alone tells Shino everything. He genuinely doesn't care. So she happily leaves herself in his hands for the rest of their study schedule. Once they're seated on the train though, Shino finally realizes the truth. Walking her home wasn't romantic. It was a trap, a study trap. Sandai asks if she seriously only realized that now. Shino pouts, saying she thought they'd get some romantic alone time. Sandai calmly explains that studying on the train is an extremely efficient use of time. Shino gives him the flattest look. Still, she studies seriously. She insists on solving one question fully before moving on, and Sandai notices something encouraging. She's actually putting in real effort. That makes him happy. Over the next few days, he notices Shino frowning her brows more often. Their time together has become almost entirely study-focused. No dates, no relaxing, just studying. He realizes she must be under a lot of stress from doing something so mentally exhausting, so he decides to motivate her. If she avoids failing, he'll give her a reward. Shino looks surprised. Then she gently refuses. She says she appreciates the thought but doesn't need anything. He's already doing so much for her. He also doesn't want to hurt his wallet. Sandai tells her not to worry. He's starting a part-time job next month. That catches her off guard. He asks why I never told him. He explains he only got accepted recently and never found the right moment to mention it. Shino's next concern comes instantly. Will this affect the time that we spend together?
Sandai assures her he'll only take shifts that won't ruin their routine. That calms her for about 2 seconds. Then she asks where he'll be working. He tells her, at the new aquarium, as a cleaner. Her eyes narrow immediately. Are there girls working there? Sandai freezes. He confirms there are women there, including the vice director. He quickly adds that since he's just a cleaner, he probably won't interact much with anyone. Shino immediately asks the vice director's aide. Yep, investigation mode activated. Then she says something else. She wants to to visit the aquarium after it opens. She wants to see him working. Sendai tells her cleaning probably isn't very exciting to watch. Shino doesn't care. Interesting or not, she just wants to see him. That somehow makes Sendai nervous. For some reason, imagining Shino watching him on his first day at work feels scarier than the actual job. After thinking about schedules though, he realizes something. Their timings probably won't overlap anyway. Still, he tells her he's looking forward to her visit. Shino says she's financially stable enough not to worry about expensive rewards, but she promises not to ask for something unreasonable either. Sendai suggests they decide the reward together once she passes. That makes Shino genuinely happy. Soon, the train reaches her stop. Outside the window, the scenery has completely changed. Gone are the city lights. Now it's dark rural land, open fields, and scattered houses. They get off and Shino leads the way. Then she casually drops something new. Her family runs a tofu shop. Apparently, it's an old business that only opens 3 hours a day. Most of their time goes into making tofu and delivering it since their location doesn't get many walk-in customers. She explains tofu isn't exactly a high-profit product because it's cheap everywhere, but her parents managed to keep the business running together. As they continue walking through the quiet countryside, Shino explains something more personal. One reason she started working part-time was because she wanted to cover her own expenses instead of depending on her parents. The road gets narrower and quieter as they head deeper into the neighborhood. Sendai suddenly asks something random. So, because her family runs a tofu shop, does that mean she got unlimited tofu growing up? Shino admits she used to eat a lot of it, but not anymore. Sendai asked if she got sick of it. Shino hesitates. Then she asks not to laugh. She explains that when she was younger, she heard a rumor that eating a lot of tofu makes a girl's chest grow bigger. Sendai pauses. Wait, what? Shino continues saying she experienced major growth during the later years of elementary school. After reading that rumor in middle school, she completely stopped eating tofu because she was desperate to stop things from getting worse. She hated boys staring at her. That explains a lot. Sendai realizes this might be one of the reasons she became so uncomfortable around guys in the first place. He quietly sympathizes with what she went through. Shino tells him he doesn't need to force comforting words. Just listening is enough. And somehow finally telling someone about that makes her feel lighter. Eventually, they arrived at the Yuzaki tofu shop. Shino casually says everyone's upstairs. Sendai's brain instantly crashes. Wait, everyone? As in her parents? Tonight? Right now? His anxiety spikes. He asked her to wait. Very nervously, he asks if he's expected to introduce himself to her parents tonight. He always knew it would happen eventually, he just didn't expect it to happen this suddenly. Shino looks confused. Didn't he expect this after walking her all the way home? Sendai desperately argues that meeting parents should happen during the daytime, not at late night. Shino suggests introducing him as her boyfriend who safely walked her home. Then she suddenly pauses. Realization hits. She quietly admits something shocking. She actually hasn't told her parents about him yet. Sendai freezes. Excuse me? Shino says she should probably tell them soon, otherwise Miki might reveal it herself. She even starts preparing to call her parents right now. Sendai panics and stops her immediately. No, please no, not tonight. He insists he'd rather do a proper introduction during the day. Eventually, Shino gives in. Then she asks for their usual goodbye kiss. Sendai hesitates. Right in front of her house? Really? Shino remains completely firm. So Sendai gives up and gives her a quick kiss. Shino immediately points out it was way shorter than usual. Sendai nearly dies from embarrassment. Then she laughs and says she's just teasing him. She apologizes for pushing too hard and tells him to get home safe. They exchange good nights and wave goodbye. Sendai starts walking away. Then loud laughter erupts from inside the house. He stops, slowly turns around and sees a girl peeking through the window, clearly trying and failing not to laugh. Miki. She saw everything. The whole goodbye, the kiss, all of it. Sendai feels pure embarrassment. He assumes Miki's laughing because he traveled all the way out here just to see Shino. And honestly, yeah, that sounds like something she'd laugh at. As he walks home, he starts thinking about families. Shino's home feels warm and lively, very different from his own childhood. His parents were constantly working, often away even when they lived overseas. When he was little, he was frequently left with babysitters he couldn't even communicate with. That meant spending a lot of time alone. He quietly thinks that maybe this isolated upbringing is why he struggles so much with communication now. But dwelling on that won't help. Right now, there's only one goal: help Shino pass. During the next tutoring session, Sendai goes full strategist. For math, he tells Shino to completely ignore integrals. No time. Instead, focus on derivatives and secure the easier points. For English listening, give up. Again, no time. Instead, focus on readal comprehension
attention, since many answers can be found directly in the text if she understands the questions properly. The rest of the subjects become pure memorization, flashcards, repetition, brute force. One classmate watching them starts wondering if Sandai's being way too strict. Shino stares at her textbook, trying desperately to remember the meaning of an English phrase. Sandai watches her carefully. She's trusting him completely. He doesn't enjoy being this harsh, but he believes it's necessary, so he hardens his resolve. They'll give this everything they've got. Finally, exam day arrives. Shino looks absolutely destroyed, physically exhausted, mentally drained. Sandai asks if she's okay. She weakly says she's fine. The teacher tells everyone to pass the papers back. The classroom immediately erupts with nervous complaints. Students groan, panic, and regret every life decision that led them here. Someone says their stomach hurts. Another says they should have studied more. The teacher yells at everyone to stop talking. Silence. Exam conditions. No whispering. The class representative keeps shouting obvious things until someone tells him to shut up because he woke up Nakaya-sensei. Even now, chaos. Then the papers reach Shino. Sandai turns around and quietly speaks to her. Do your best. Shino smiles. This time her response has energy. She says she will. The exam begins. Pens start moving. The entire room goes silent. Shino stares at the paper with intense focus and starts writing. Meanwhile, Sandai looks at his own test. Then he makes a surprising decision. He intentionally leaves some answers blank. Some he answers incorrectly on purpose. Why? Because he remembered something, a promise. If the class representative takes first place in the year, someone will celebrate with him. So Sandai quietly lowers his own score, just a little. He's trying to help that guy win. Yeah, in his own weird way. Sandai is actually rooting for him. After the exams end, Sandai quietly feels satisfied with his little plan. Even if lowering his own score doesn't massively affect the overall class average, he still hopes it helps Shino a little. For him, the intention matters. The next day, the teacher collects the answer sheets and officially ends the exam session. Shino practically explodes with relief. The exams are finally over. Sendai asks how he thinks it went. Shino hesitates and says she thinks she actually did okay. She's shocked because so many questions matched exactly what Sandai focused on during tutoring. Sandai modestly brushes it off, saying he just predicted the general trends. Shino stares at him with obvious admiration. Her friends watch the two of them and immediately start commenting on how couple-like they are. Then Sandai asked something he's been wondering.
Why was she so desperate not to fail this time? Shino explains that remedial classes start on the very first day of winter break. Sandai still doesn't get why that matters. Shino just stares at him, doubting, waiting. Then it clicks. December 24th, Christmas Eve. Oh, that's why. If she failed, remedial classes would ruin their plans and mess up her work schedule. Sandai realized she took this way more seriously than he expected. When he comments on that, Shino gives him a suspicious look, like she's trying to figure out what he really meant. A few days later, the results finally come out, and somehow, Shino passed everything. Barely, but passed. That's all that matters. She celebrates like she just survived a war. Meanwhile, her friends are in total shock, mostly because they failed everything. They complain that Shino betrayed them by escaping remedial class prison. The other girls quickly realize the truth. Shino's motivation wasn't academics, it was love. And apparently, love is terrifyingly effective. At the same time, another dramatic event happens. The class representative suddenly lets out a huge shout. Everyone turns. He's clutching his results with tears in his eyes. He did it! He finally got first place. A classmate congratulates him for breaking through with last. Sandai quietly watches. Looks like his little sabotage worked. Well, partly. Then Nakaya-sensei interrupts everything. She announces she needs to speak with one student privately, Fujiwara Sandai. Immediately, Shino goes on high alert. She demands to know why. Why does he need a private meeting? Why can't they talk here? The teacher calmly says she's not planning to scold him. That doesn't help. The class starts whispering as Sandai gets buried under awkward attention. He tries calming Shino down, saying it's probably nothing serious, but she remains suspicious. She even warns him to report it if the teacher tries anything weird. Yeah, she still hasn't forgotten the bunny suit energy. Sandai heads to the faculty room. Once they're alone, Nakaya-sensei immediately compares Shino's protectiveness to a rabid dog. Brutal. Then she asks if Sandai was the one who helped Shino pass. He confirms it. The teacher admits that while teaching struggling students is difficult, she genuinely appreciates what he did. But she also noticed something else. She noticed he intentionally threw away points on the exam. He was clearly trying to lower the class average. Sandai freezes. She noticed that too. But because its score was still ridiculously high, she decides to let it slide. Sandai asks why she dragged him all the way here just to say that. The teacher awkwardly clears her throat. That's when Sandai realizes this wasn't the real reason. She brings up the text message after the festival, the bunny suit. Yeah, that. Sandai immediately pretends he has no idea what she's talking about. He says the only thing he remembers is her class cafe getting shut down and then enjoying the rest of the festival with Shino. Nakaya-sensei stares at him, then sighs in relief. She praises him for understanding the situation and knowing when to play dumb. Sandai leaves. As he walks away, the teacher quietly thinks to herself that he's just as stoic as he was 10 years ago, and probably doesn't remember her at all. That line passes by quietly, but yeah, something is clearly there. Outside, Shino is waiting. Sandai tells her the teacher only wanted to compliment him for helping with tutoring. Shino still looks suspicious. Before they can leave, Shino remembers something important. Takashi Eso asked for Sandai's help. Sandai says he's willing, as long as it's something he can actually do. Later that evening, after Shino finishes work, they meet at Café Blanc. Sandai already has a suspicion. This probably involves the class representative. At this point, he's so used to the cafe treating him like VIP just because he's Shino's boyfriend that it doesn't even feel weird anymore. Takashi Eso arrives and nervously greets him. Sandai invites her to sit. She comments on how nice the cafe is, and Sandai casually says he got used to the place because he comes here almost every day to pick Shino up. Takashi Eso looks impressed, then slightly jealous. She asks whether Shino requested that or if he doesn't voluntarily. When Sandai says it's his own decision, Takashi Eso quietly mutters something about how nice their relationship is.
Sandai notices. She immediately denies saying anything. Then he brings up the reason she came. He asks if this favor has something to do with the class representative. Takasego instantly freezes. Her reaction is so obvious it's almost funny. She demands to know how he figured it out. Sandai says it was just a guess, but honestly, her feelings were already obvious during the festival. Takasego starts panicking because she realizes she basically exposed herself. Before things spiral further, Shino arrives after finishing work. Takasego immediately slumps onto the table in despair. Shino and Sandai both stare. Shino asks Sandai if he seriously already knew Takasego liked the class representative. Sandai says it was obvious. Shino, meanwhile, admits she didn't notice at all until Takasego told her directly. Sandai calls her dense. Shino immediately defends herself. She says it's because she only pays attention to him. Smooth recovery. Then they finally get to the main topic. Shino admits something. She actually doesn't know much about boys. Takasego looks surprised, but Shino explains Sandai is literally her first boyfriend, so when she asked Takasego for advice about a guy, she didn't feel qualified. That's why she brought in Sandai. Takasego says the class president is a good person, though she remembers he sometimes knows Shino. She even offers to apologize if he caused trouble. Sandai internally remembers the guy trying to cling to him in excitement. Yeah, that. Shino says not to worry, it was just a minor disagreement. Then Shino asks the important question. Does Takasego want help figuring out what the class representative likes so she can buy him a birthday gift? Takasego lights up and says yes, his birthday is on the 15th, and she wants to celebrate both his birthday and his first place ranking. The problem is obvious. If she asks him directly, he'll probably get suspicious and run, and Sandai doesn't exactly want to get too close to the guy either. Shino reaches a dramatic conclusion. There's only one option: investigation. Both Sandai and Takasego stare at her. Sandai asks if she's basically suggesting stalking. Shino calmly confirms. Takasego looks deeply uncomfortable. She points out that this sounds morally questionable. Sandai silently agrees. Shino argues that investigation sounds much better than tailing someone. That is not helping. Takasego brings up privacy concerns. Sandai tells her it's hopeless. Once Shino decides something, she goes all in. Soon, it's just Sandai and Shino carrying out the operation. Takasego backed out. Can't blame her. They observe the class representative sitting alone with a small book. Sandai wonders what he's reading. Shino guesses it's probably some difficult academic book. That sounds likely. Suddenly, the class representative checks the time and stands up. Mission begins. Shino whispers for them to move. They follow him carefully through town. At one point, the class representative suddenly looks back, almost like he sensed them. Sandai and Shino instantly hide behind the corner. That was close. After looking around suspiciously, he continues. Eventually, he enters a building. Sandai looks up. It's full of cram schools. Shino is shocked. That place looks expensive. Since they can't just stand outside forever, Sandai suggests one in a nearby burger shop where they can watch the entrance. Shino agrees. They take a window seat and wait and wait and wait. After a long time, Shino starts complaining. The guy's taking forever. Sandai checks his phone. It's already past 8 p.m. Shino jokes that the class representative must be taking some brutal Spartan level course despite being only a second year. Then Sandai changes the topic. He brings up the reward, the one he promised if she avoided failing. Shino immediately says there's no way she forgot. Even though she rejected the idea at first, she admits she's been thinking about it. Then she remembers something. Back when he visited her house, Sandai mentioned that going to an onsen sounded nice. She asked if he remembers saying that. Sandai isn't even sure if he did. Then, without warning, he pulls out his phone
phone and makes a call. He calls an inn and books a room for 2 adults one night after the 24th. Shino freezes completely. The inn says a room was available on the 28th. Shino turns red and tells him to book it.
Sandai hangs up, equally flustered. He awkwardly explains he acted on impulse. Shino is still red, very red. Then Sandai brings up something important. If they're spending the night together, he feels it would be rude not to properly greet her parents first. So before the trip, he wants to visit her house and formally introduce himself. Shino asks if he's pushing himself too hard. Sandai says momentum matters for things like this. Shino smiles and agrees. Then they check the time, almost 9 p.m. Right then, the class representative finally exits the cram school. Mission resumes. They follow him again. This time, he heads into a bookstore. Interesting. Shino says they should go inside and figure out what kind of books he likes. Inside, they watch him reach for a red book. Shino wonders what it is. Sandai immediately identifies it. Past entrance exam question book. Shino gets annoyed. He's still studying, even now. Meanwhile, Shino notices a totally different book. A guide about deepening love through kissing. She says she likes that one way more. Of course she does. Then she tells Sandai to stay put while she goes pay for it. Sandai watches the class representative at the counter. The president pays for his book while casually looking around. Nearby, Shino hides behind a shelf with her purchase. Sandai watches nervously. Something tells him this operation is about to get messy. At the bookstore, the class representative suddenly looks around with suspicion. He's sure he just heard a familiar voice. Sandai immediately whispers for whoever made that noise to stay quiet because they're seconds away from getting caught. Then he turns around and nearly loses it. It's Takasego, the one person who said she'd wait for their report, somehow ended up here anyway. Sandai asks why she came, and Takasego apologizes, saying she felt guilty leaving everything to them. Unfortunately, it's already too late. The class representative is right behind them. He finally confirms what he suspected all day. They were following him. Shino and Sandai both freeze. The class representative bluntly says getting tailed isn't exactly pleasant and asks if they really were spying on it. Takasego suddenly gets emotional. Then everything explodes at once. She starts crying and blurts out the truth. She says she just wanted to know more about him. She likes him romantically. And just like that, the entire mission ends in a full confession inside a bookstore. Takasego crouches down and keeps apologizing through tears, explaining she only wanted to learn what kind of gifts he liked so she could buy him a birthday present. People nearby start whispering. Now everyone thinks the class representative made a girl cry. Bro is under public trial. He looks around, clearly feeling the pressure, then takes a deep breath and composes himself. He asks one question. Is her interest romantic? Takasego, still crying, says yes. The class representative admits something surprising. He says he doesn't understand girls' hearts at all. Takasego looks crushed. Then he kneels down in front of her. He explains he has almost no experience with romance, so he honestly doesn't know what the correct response is. Takasego quietly asks if that means he hates her. He says no, but he doesn't have a real answer yet. Instead, he asks something else. Would she be willing to start being friends? Takasego slowly looks up. Then he asks about the gift. What does she want to give him? She says she just wanted to celebrate his birthday and ranking. He tells her it's not a burden at all. In fact, he says he'll get her a birthday present too. That instantly changes everything. Takasego lights up with pure happiness. From the side, Sandai and Shino quietly watch the whole thing. Mission failed successfully. As they walk home that night, both agree the two of them seem to be doing fine now, so there's no reason to interfere anymore. Then Sandai's phone buzzes. He checks the message and completely freezes. Bad news. Very bad news. At work, during a break, Sandai tells his coworkers that Shino is coming to visit. Immediately. Apparently, her shift changed, and this is a disaster. He explains that Shino gets extremely possessive around other women and can be terrifyingly intimidating. His coworkers, instead of panicking, become weirdly interested. One coworker asks if her jealousy is really that intense. Another jokes that in the worst case scenario, female staff might have to quit.
Kamaki quickly gathers everyone like this is a military brief. They need a strategy. No suspicious behavior, minimal conversation. Kamaki stays mostly in the office. And most importantly, Seki needs to stay low profile. Everyone agrees. Sandai and Seki look deeply uneasy. A while later, Shino arrives at the aquarium. The moment she spots Sandai working, her face lights up. Then, Click, click, click. She starts taking photos of him rapid fire. She keeps commenting on how cool he looks in his cleaning uniform. Sundai tells her to be careful because he's technically working, but Shino promises she'll just watch quietly. Then her eyes land on Seki. Uh-oh. She points at the girl in matching work clothes and asks who that is. Sundai immediately says his partner is actually a guy. Shino gets closer. She notices Seki's cute face, then notices the nice scent coming from him. Suspicion rises. She directly asks why someone so cute is pretending to be a boy. Seki instantly switches to a deeper voice and says he's absolutely a guy. As for the trendy shampoo scent, his sister lets him use it. Subtle recovery. Sundai wants to help, but realizes stepping in would probably make things look worse. Then Shino asks the dangerous question, is Seki Sundai's girlfriend? Sundai's soul leaves his body. Before he can respond, Seki answers, yes, he is. Then Seki warns Shino not to get weirdly close to Sundai. Shino surprisingly accepts that and backs off. Wait, what? Somehow Seki actually survives the encounter. From a distance, a co-worker comments that Shino is so beautiful that Sundai probably has no reason to even look at other women. Shino gives a small laugh. Nearby, another co-worker secretly checks on Seki, wondering if he's okay. Seki internally sighs of relief. He might have pulled it off. Later, Shino watches Sundai work near the Delta Stadium. She quietly keeps staring at him. Even when he goes back to mopping floors, she doesn't look away. Then she notices another staff member walking by. The ID badge reads Mika Kamaki, female co-worker detected. Instant suspicion. Shino gets an annoyed look and decides this woman feels weird and scary. Yeah, Kamaki just got added to the watch list. After the shift, the staff thanks Sundai for helping them survive the day. Outside, near a huge aquarium tank, Shino tells Sundai he looked really cool while working. She even shows him the photo she took. Sundai gets embarrassed. Shino mentions her own job involves constant interaction with customers and asks whether his work feels similar to hers. Then she offers to treat him to dinner. Sundai agrees. While walking together, she casually asks about one of the employees who made a weird face early. Yep, she noticed everything. The next day, winter break officially begins. Shino celebrates like she's been freed from prison. Since there's still time before her work shift, Sundai suggests they relax at a nearby cafe. While sitting together, Sundai brings up something he's been noticing. Shino has been slowly leaving more and more personal belongings at his place. Hair iron, bath products, random stuff. At this point, it's obvious. Shino casually admits it. Sundai tells her something important. Leaving things at his place will not automatically lead to sleepovers. He wants to handle their relationship properly. Shino asks why he's being so strict. Sundai explains if she lies to her parents to stay over and they find out, things could get messy. Before they ever go on trips or stay together overnight, he wants to properly meet her parents first. Sundai says lying would probably be fine. Sundai firmly disagrees. He wants her parents to officially accept him as a boyfriend. He wants their relationship to be something her family supports. Then Shino asks a huge question. Is he thinking this seriously because he sees marriage in their future? Sundai goes quiet. He thinks carefully. Then he answers honestly. Shino is the most important person in his life, and yes, he wants her relationship to eventually lead to marriage. To him, marriage is the ultimate form of relationship. Shino laughs off, then says hearing him say things out loud makes her incredibly happy. Sundai confirms he means every word. Shino asks him to tell her things like that from time to time, so she doesn't get insecure. He agrees. Then he reminds her of something. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve.
They should spend the whole day together from morning till night. Shino happily agreed. The next day, Christmas finally arrives. Sundai walks through the city at night thinking about the present he picked out with Miki's help. He's honestly nervous. Can he really give it to Shino without messing this up? Morning comes. Shino greets him and thanks him for waiting outside. She notices his hands are freezing and offers to warm them. They spend the day walking through the city enjoying Christmas decorations. Sundai casually comments that some people think Christmas lights are just a waste of electricity. Shino rejects that logic immediately. They're sparkly and cute. That's enough. They stop at a cozy cafe for a break. The server asks if they're a couple. Shino confidently asks for a table for two. Sundai reflects on how time always flies when he's with her. The server points out their special Christmas couples menu. There's even a couples only discount. This place is fully committed to the theme. Neither of them is very hungry, so they just order drinks. Then the drinks arrive. Christmas strawberry milk, served with a special heart-shaped straw for couples. Sundai stares at it. This place is doing way too much. Still, the two lean in and drink from the straw together. Shino keeps staring directly at him while drinking. Sundai gets extremely flustered. Then Shino pulls back and complains she isn't getting any drink because he's sucking too hard. Sundai apologizes, wondering if there's actual technique involved in using a couple straw. Bro is treating this like engineering. Shino tells him to do better. They try again. While drinking, Shino suddenly brings up Miki. Apparently, Miki recently decided she wants to raise a cat.
a Persian cat specifically. Shino says Mickey only wants it because it's fluffy and cute. She doubts Mickey would actually take responsibility for caring for it. Sandai says he understands that motivation. Wanting something because it's fluffy and cute is pretty relatable. Soon the cafe gets crowded, so they leave. Their date continues. They visit a plaza with a giant Christmas tree and take photos together, both making peace signs. They stop by a game center. Sandai tries a crayon machine. After a few attempts, he actually wins a stuffed cat wearing a Santa outfit. Shino is thrilled. They keep walking, then stop at a bakery to buy Christmas cake. Shino happily carries the cake box, while Sandai suggests they head back to his apartment for a house date. She agrees immediately. Back at his apartment, Shino crawls straight into the kotatsu and melts into the warmth. Sandai laughs. That was fast. Then he tells her to wait a sec, goes to his bag, slowly unzips it. This is it. Gift time. But before he can give his present, Shino surprises him first. She hands him a Christmas gift. It's a cashmere muffler. Sandai wraps it around his neck. It feels incredibly soft. Shino explains she bought it because his old scarf was getting worn out. Sandai thanks him. He's genuinely touched. Then a test turn. He tells Shino he also has a present, but he's nervous, really nervous. He even worried she might not like it. Shino smiles and tells him she'd be happy with anything he gives her. That gives him enough courage. Sandai hands her the gift bag with an awkward laugh. Shino beams. It's her first Christmas present from a boyfriend. She opens the bag, looks inside, and instantly freezes. Her happy smile disappears into pure confusion. Then she slowly looks up at Sandai and asks him one question. What exactly is this?
Shino is completely flustered as she holds up the bra Sandai gave her, staring at it with wide, blushing eyes, asking if this is really for her. Sandai, sitting across from her and clearly just as nervous, quietly confirms that it is. That only makes Shino even more shocked, and she asks if he seriously wants her to wear it. Sandai awkwardly explains that he spent a lot of time thinking about it before buying it and felt like it would be nice if she wore it. Realizing he genuinely means it, Shino raises the bra slightly and mutters that she understands, though she's still visibly embarrassed. Sandai notices she doesn't seem angry and quietly feels relieved. Trying to ease the tension, he mentions that he thinks he got the size right too. Shino, still red-faced, reacts to how sudden this gift is, especially since it's underwear. Sandai starts to panic, thinking she might dislike it, but Shino stops him and reminds him of something she told him before. She likes anything he gives her. That instantly calms him down. Then Shino says the timing actually works out perfectly since they can wear it during their upcoming onsen trip. The conversation shifts as Shino points out they should wrap things up before heading to their part-time jobs. She confirms their plan to visit his parents the day after tomorrow. Sunday says it should only take about an hour or 2 hours. When she asks if he wants to stay until dinner, he politely declines, saying he'll be fine. 2 days later, Sandai is already feeling the pressure. Even after calling ahead to let his parents know Shino is coming, he can't stop feeling anxious. Around the same time, he receives his first paycheck from his part-time job. Holding the money makes him smile a little, since he had specifically started working so he could enjoy trips and outings with Shino without worrying about expenses. Later, he rides the train toward the meeting spot, looking calm at first as he watches the scenery pass by. But the moment he gets off at the station, reality hits hard. The nervousness comes rushing in all at once, and he internally freaks out. Yeah, he's absolutely panicking now. He ends up sitting on a bench to calm himself and buys a can of black coffee from a vending machine. As he drinks, he tries talking himself down. He reminds himself this is only going to be an hour or 2 hours of conversation, and it's something important for their future plans. After forcing himself to settle down, he stands up, finishes the coffee in one go, and throws the empty can away. Eventually, he arrives at a house with the sign reading, "Handmade Yuizaki." Before he can even fully compose himself, the door opens and Shino cheerfully greets him with a loud good morning. She brings him inside and lightly teases him by asking if he got lost. Sunday says he already told his parents he was coming. Shino explains that when she first told her parents her boyfriend wanted to properly greet them before the trip, they were pretty surprised, but she assures him everything will be okay. As they walk toward the living room, Sandai is sweating again and asks how her parents actually reacted. Shino casually says her mom was totally relaxed about it, but her dad seemed irritated. That definitely doesn't help his nerves, but he pushes forward anyway. Shino slides open the living room door and announces their arrival. Inside, her mother, father, and a younger girl are seated around a low table. Sandai nervously introduces himself. Right away, one thing stands out. Shino's father, Daigo, has bandages all over his face and a serious expression, while Shino's mother sits beside him with a warm, gentle smile. Sandai tries to give a formal greeting, but the moment he looks at Daigo, his thoughts derail completely. He politely introduces himself, but internally he's screaming about what happened to Daigo's face.
The question slips out so bluntly that he immediately realizes he messed up. Daigo opens his eyes with a tired look. Sandai hurriedly tries to recover, awkwardly asking if he got stung by a bee or fell somewhere. Daigo simply says it's nothing important and tells him not to worry about it. Sandai instantly realizes he stepped right onto a landmine.
Shino's mother smoothly changes the atmosphere by serving tea. As she leans forward to place the cups down, Sandai is caught off guard by her appearance and inwardly notes that she's way more imposing than he expected in multiple ways. That clashes with the gentle image he had in his head. He quickly tells himself not to jump to conclusions and assumes she's probably just a kind person. She cheerfully introduces herself as Coco and even jokes that her name is written using 2 co-characters. But Sandai is still overthinking. Since children often resemble their parents in some way, he starts wondering if her gentle attitude might just be a front. Coco tells Daigo to stop soaking. Daigo clears his throat and takes control of the conversation. He tells Sandai that if there's something he wants to say, he should say it. Then he immediately cuts to the main issue. He asks Sandai directly if it's true that he wants to go on a trip alone with Shino. The room instantly goes stiff. Both Sandai and Shino freeze. Nervous level? Maximum. Daigo sits with his arms crossed and repeats the question, clearly asking if the two of them are really planning to travel alone together. Sandai is visibly tense, but he answers with a firm yes. He explains that he felt it would be wrong to go without informing them first, which is why he wanted to properly introduce himself and ask for their approval. Daigo then asks about the money. Sandai explains that he plans to cover all the expenses himself. He tells them he started working a part-time job specifically so he and Shino could spend time together without causing problems. Hearing that, Daigo's expression softens a little. He admits that Sandai has clearly thought things through. Sandai quietly relaxes, thinking the hardest part might finally be over. But then Daigo suddenly asks another question. What does Sandai's parents do? Sandai hesitates before explaining that both of his parents are volcano researchers currently living overseas because of work. That immediately gets a reaction. Daigo's eyes widen as he asks if he means Fujiwara Nidai, the researcher currently working in Iceland. Coco also reacts, clearly recognizing the name. The younger girl, Mikiki, quickly pulls out her phone and says she recently saw that name on a TV special about natural disasters. She shows everyone the program where a volcano expert is being introduced. Sandai awkwardly confirms that yes, the expert on the screen is his father. Coco asks in disbelief if that famous professor, the MIT graduate who's even being discussed as a potential Nobel Prize candidate, is really her dad. Sandai confirms it, though he admits he doesn't know much about his parents' work. Daigo quietly processes all of this. Then, without saying much, he stands up and tells Sandai to wait for a moment before leaving the room. The second he's gone, Sandai turns to Shino in a panic, sweating again and wondering if he said something wrong. Shino looks at him calmly and reassures him that he's fine. She explains that her dad was mainly trying to judge whether Sandai is a reliable person or not. Sandai asks if that's really all it is. Shino says Daigo actually seems mostly okay with him after meeting him, but she trails off midway as if there's still something left unsaid. Shino then admits she is genuinely surprised because this is the first time she's ever heard what Sandai's parents actually do. Sandai wonders if her dad was simply shocked to learn that he's the son of a famous researcher, and Shino agrees that's probably it. When he asks if he never mentioned it before, she flatly tells him no, he absolutely don't. Then she casually asks that while some people care a lot about what kind of family their partner comes from, she personally doesn't need reasons or background details to fall for someone. For her, the person she fell for is simply Sandai himself. That hits Sandai pretty hard. Internally, he reflects on how amazing Shino is and admits he often gets insecure, wondering whether he's really good enough to be her boyfriend. He knows he has a habit of overthinking things that probably don't matter, but Shino has always been straightforward and honest with her feelings, and watching her now makes him think maybe he should trust himself more too. Shino notices him quietly thinking and asks what's wrong, jokingly wondering if his stomach hurts or something. Sandai says he's fine, but Shino points out that he was making the exact same pose as the thinker, with his chin resting on his hand. She gets weirdly excited and tells him to do it again. Sandai half-heartedly copies the pose, resting his chin on his hand while she happily announces that he got it right. Then she adds that the version in textbooks usually has its eyes closed. Sandai sighs and closes his eyes to match it. The moment he does, Shino suddenly leans in and plants a quick kiss on his cheek. Then she pulls back with a playful laugh and says she got him. Sandai completely freezes and his face turns bright red in an instant, and his heartbeat goes wild. Shino, clearly enjoying his reaction, points out how red his cheeks are and asks if he liked that. Flustered beyond belief, Sandai tries to dodge the question by rambling about how he barely opens his textbooks anyway, so he doesn't even remember if the statue's eyes were actually closed. Shino keeps pressing, asking if he liked it or not. Cornered finally, Sandai admits with a stammer that, yeah, kind of. Meanwhile, just outside the room, Daigo, Coco, and Miki are standing by the door. And yep, they saw the whole thing. Daigo stares in total disbelief, wondering what on earth you just witnessed. He thought Shino was supposed to be bad with boys. Coco quietly comments that this is also the first time she's seen Shino act this affectionate with one. Miki says she still thinks Shino was awkward with boys in general, it's just that Sandai is different. He's special to her. Still trying to process everything, Daigo admits he's actually relieved it was Sandai. He says if some flashy, aggressive guy had shown up acting overly familiar and calling himself her man, he probably would have passed out on the spot. Coco teases him, asking if he was also shocked because Sandai turned out to be the famous professor's son. Daigo admits that surprised him too. Then he slumps and starts whining that he feels lonely now, even complaining that Shino won't eat his tofu anymore. Coco deadpans that she can understand that part. Miki tries to comfort him in an exaggerated baby voice, saying she'll always stay by her side even if her big sister grows up. Coco immediately shuts that down, bluntly telling her not to suddenly change the way she talks because it's revolting. Daigo just looks exhausted. After a while, Daigo returns to the main topic. Standing there with a heavy sigh, he asks Sandai once more if he truly wants to go on a trip with Shino. Sandai instantly answers with an respectful yes. Daigo rubs his chin and drags out a long, thoughtful hum, clearly stalling. Coco watches this with increasing irritation. Her expression goes from annoyed to fully done with him. Then she snaps. She smacks Daigo across the face and yells at him to get together already. Reminds him they already decided on the answer yesterday and tells him to stop dragging things out and just tell Sandai. She even calls him an old fart by doing it. Daigo cries out in pain as Coco keeps scolding him, saying that making Sandai wait like this only makes things harder for the poor boy. Daigo immediately folds under pressure, weakly mumbling agreement. Sandai just stands there frozen, wide-eyed, silently witnessing the chaos. Coco turns back to Sandai with an apologetic expression and explains that her husband is just that kind of person. Daigo tries to defend himself, insisting this looks worse than it is, but Coco instantly shuts him down again.
Then Sandai speaks up, catching both of them off guard. He says he actually understands Daigo's perspective as a father. In fact, he thinks those worries are proof that Daigo is a wonderful father. Coco visibly softens at that and thanks him for seeing Daigo that way. Then, she finally gives the answer officially. They have no objection to the relationship and they're fine with Sandai and Shino going on the trip together. The tension finally disappears. Shino instantly brightens and throws up a cheerful peace sign, while Sandai lets out a relieved smile. Coco nudges Daigo and scolds him for being so harsh earlier when Sandai turned out to be such a respectable young man. Daigo starts tearing up, and Coco sighs, saying she'll speak for him since he's already becoming emotional. The mood completely shifts into something warm and lighthearted. Daigo suddenly says he wishes he could go on a trip to Hawaii. Miki immediately shoots that down, reminding him they definitely don't have that kind of money. Sandai, overflowing with relief and gratitude, gives them a loud and sincere thank you. Shino laughs and says her dad being lonely can't really be helped. Miki tells her big sister not to forget souvenirs. Watching this exchange, Sandai feels something unfamiliar. The atmosphere in this family feels warm, comfortably chaotic, but warm. He reflects that while he's proud of his parents and the important work they do to help countless people, he can't help envying the kind of closeness Shino's family has. He quietly admits to himself that he isn't used to this kind of family warmth. Shino notices his expression and gently pats his head. Caught off guard, Sandai asks what she's doing. Shino teases him, saying he looked like he wanted someone to spoil him. He denies it, but she clearly doesn't buy that. Later, as they walk through a busy station, Shino guesses that his parents probably weren't home much when he was growing up. Sandai honestly admits that he's jealous of her family and says he has weak moments too. He also says maybe he should have asked about her family more properly from the beginning and calls himself pathetic. Shino immediately dismisses that with a warm laugh, telling him to be ridiculous. As they continue walking, Sandai's expression softens. Shino gently cups his face and asks if he's calmed down now. Back at the house, Coco is dragging Daigo away from the doorway while scolding him for getting too involved in their daughter's love life. Daigo whines that it would have been easier if Sandai had at least given him something to complain about, anything at all. Coco comments that the whole situation feels like something straight out of a drama. Then, Miki casually reveals how Daigo got those bandages in the first place. Apparently, yesterday, he shouted hell no about the trip, which made Shino cry and Coco punched him for it. Daigo sighs and confirms that yes, that's exactly what happened. Coco raises a clenched fist with a bright smile and cheerfully reminds him that she still has her. Then, without changing that smile, she adds that she kinda wants to punch him again right now too. Daigo immediately recoils, sweating in pure fear. 2 days later, morning arrives. Sandai and Shino stand together on an empty train platform, ready to leave for their trip. Shino cheerfully asks if she slept well. Sandai honestly admits he barely slept at all. With a huge grin, Shino excitedly shouts that it's finally hot spring trip time. Sandai looks at her, now much more relaxed than before, and smiles. Then he simply says that they should get going. With that, the two board the train together, as the story teases that a major event is waiting ahead on their trip.